And every single cop in this city goes to one thing, no matter what it is. Okay, let's just for the speaker thing over here. Yeah. Why do something on the bridge and the Councilman, how are you? Gentlemen, who walked in? I'm here. How about mainly Altman? No, you.
That's true. That's true.
Tammy, is Heidi on? Is Heidi on?
She should be.
I am on. Do you hear me?
Here she is.
We're waiting for Erica.
She was downstairs setting up the lobby. Yeah. Oh, okay.
I get him. Yep.
I gotta come see you tomorrow. Something serious though. My iPad. No, it's just you hold it and it won't even do the and other stuff. I don't know what's updating. You can probably fix. I don't know that. The George problems.
Okay, are they here?
For a while.
Thank you, William. Are we ready?
Give me 2 seconds. We're trying to set up a laptop downstairs.
Okay. Thank you for your patience. We're setting up a laptop downstairs for the residents sitting downstairs and just getting the glitch out of it. So just another moment or two. Ready? Okay. Call the roll.
Mayor Mitchell,
Here.
Vice Mayor Best,
Present.
Councilwoman Bravo,
Here.
Councilman Fahet,
Here.
Councilman Vasquez.
Here.
There's a quorum present.
Thank you. All stand, please, for the invocation.
Heavenly Father, we gather here in your presence to ask that you provide us with the wisdom and peace needed as we conduct the business of our beloved city. Lord, nourish us with your guidance so that we act in a thoughtful manner with an open mind and a sense of fairness for all as we deliberate a host of ideas in the name of the residents of Miami Springs. Guide us, dear God, to have the courage and determination to do right by all In your name, Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Let's all do the Pledge of Allegiance together, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We appreciate your taking the time to come to the council meeting, to be involved, to let us know your concerns, and we have some very special guests here tonight. So I want to, at the beginning of the meeting, ask the rest of the council if it's okay with you. I would like to move agenda items 12 B and C up after 4B. Is that all right?
Yes.
All right, and I just want
Through the
to,
chair,
yes,
what I discussed earlier,
Pardon me?
that'll be the time I'd like to do that then.
okay, all right, thank you, Vice Mayor. Okay, and before we get started, I just wanted to acknowledge that we have Vice Chair Commissioner Gilbert here joining us tonight, and he's going to be speaking later, but he reached out today and wanted to attend our meeting, and we're very honored to have him here. Okay, so the first item on 4A is the Yard of the Month, and we have this is a presentation. There's a family here, the Cuenca family. Okay, well, the Cuenca family at 372 Manola Drive received the Yard of the Month award from our Parks Advisory Board today. So we'll be getting this to them, but we want to thank them for their efforts to keep Miami Springs beautiful. The next agenda item is a presentation we're very honored tonight to have Mr. Jim Murley. He is the Director of the Office of Resilience for Miami-Dade County, and he's going to be making a presentation on the county's recent strategy. I think it was just effective this year, right? The 305 Resilient strategy. So thank you so much, Mr. Murley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Commission. My name is Jim Murley. I'm the Chief Resilience Officer for Miami-Dade County. As you did, Madam Mayor, you acknowledged the Vice Chair of the Commission. He's one of my bosses. So I also would feel responsible for acknowledging Vice Chair is here. Also the Chair of the Transportation Planning Organization, the Executive Director, Eileen Bolsay. So you're in for a double header from the county.
Yes.
Pretty interesting. From the mayor's office, joining me, Madam Mayor, is Alan Alcala, who's the mayor's
Tomas.
director of Tomas Alcala, excuse me, Tomas, director of the intergovernmental coordination for the mayor, and from my office, Karina Castillo, who is our outreach person in the municipalities. So we're here. We should be able to answer any question you might have. As you said, we want to talk about the current activities of our office, and I have a short PowerPoint, and there it is. And I guess I'll just say advance the slide to somebody. Okay. We're here to talk about resilience, Madam Mayor, members of the commission. It's a broad term as used in Miami-Dade County and in partnership with our 34 cities. We're looking at the future of the county, really, from a number of different standpoints, from climate to dealing with our neighborhoods and health and human services. We really don't know, as we know well in the last year or so, what is going to be the challenge that we will face. None of us would have predicted some of the things that have happened in the last year and a half. So being resilient is being prepared for the unexpected and having the tools available to be implemented, certainly at the county level, but that can only be done in partnership with our cities. So happy to be here to talk about the way we approach that general issue. Next slide, please. So for us, dealing with resilience is about shocks, those things that we may expect, in a sense that we know when hurricane season's coming. We have to be prepared for that season, for the eventuality of a strike for a hurricane, even a passing by. So in those cases, you do a lot of preparation. Our emergency management operation at the city level and county level is really one of the best in the country. So we can train, we can do simulations, we can be ready. There are other shocks you can't be ready for. Might be a collapse of a bridge over Tamiami Trail by FIU, or God forsake, the building collapse. Then you have to create the situations and the responses almost while you're in operation. But again, that's what makes up resilience. Next slide, please. There are the stresses that we know well in our everyday operation of living in a large metropolitan area with 2.8 million people. The traffic, dealing with water quality. One of the tasks that our office in particular is charged with by the county commission and the mayor is to deal with sea level rise. Sea level rise is not a shock, it's a stress. In other words, it's a long-term change in the relative positioning of the ocean to the land. And if you looked at the paper or listened to the radio or watched TV this morning, you saw major studies released talking about how those conditions are going to change progressively into the future. So we add the shocks and the stresses together and put together our resilience strategies and other documents. Next slide, please. So I think we were here 2 years ago, actually, Karina, in the midst of preparing the strategy on resilience, which deals with places, people, and pathways. There's 50 some action items. We're making progress on all of them. We got updated study and full report for you. But that's the long-term strategic plan. We did it in close partnership at the time it was prepared with the cities of Miami and Miami Beach. Its implementation requires all 34 cities voluntarily to work with the county to see success. Next slide, please. We have an annual report where, for us, it was about attracting additional external funding to the county. They might be from foundations or other grants. It's hard sometimes to find a direct relationship, but whatever we can do to bring added resources to cities, to the county itself, to our population, to not-for-profits, to our universities, because we have a resilience strategy in place, that's what we're looking to do, to position the county to be able to access external funds. Obviously, you all have the responsibility for allocating the taxpayers' funds, but we need to add to those to provide the external funding from the state and the federal government and wherever else we can find it by showing them we're a leader in the area of resilience. Next slide, please. So our office right now is basically in 5 major areas. It's not a huge office, about a little bit over 15, 16 people. Focus on mitigation, that's reducing the emissions that cause the problem. That's where we are trying to move from carbon-based energy over time. This doesn't happen overnight. To where the electricity is coming from renewable resources like solar. And we're also moving from vehicles that are powered only by petroleum-based products to electric vehicles. Adaptation is getting ready for the changes that are going to come due to the change in the climate. That's where we have a sea level rise strategy that we talked about in the past, Madam Mayor. We're here to communicate whenever we can and as directly as we can to help. Very recently, the County Commission created a position of Biscayne Bay officer. The mayor appointed Arella Begay. So while you're not right on the bay, you may be users of the bay, and that water body out there flows to the bay. So it's all interconnected. It's like, as Arella Begay likes to say, the water is our economy and an economy is our water in Miami-Dade County. And most recently, the mayor has appointed an interim chief heat officer. We have recognized that extreme heat changes are happening much faster than we thought. You can literally measure the extremes we're having during the day and the fact it does not cool off at night. And so we're going to have situations where we need to treat heat and extreme heat events like we do other weather events and prepare for them, especially for populations that just don't have the same resources that many of us have. Some of the parts of neighborhoods, it's just, they don't have the shade trees. They're just already starting from a place where we need to work for a number of reasons. So that's our organizational component. Next slide, please. We have really want to come back here again and celebrate the fact that only when partnership with our cities can we attempt to accomplish this ambitious agenda. Can't read them there in the fine print, but each city originally focused on some areas, but the progress is being made, and we'll be glad to review with the manager and the staff, other areas that we can really drill down now that time has passed, and you may have some focus areas for us. Next slide. The sea level rise is a focus on the fact that the water in the canals, the Miami River, a canal, is to flow east to west to the bay. It was built by engineers decades ago so that gravity could drive that water down. That does not work on certain days. So those pumps down by the airport and control gates are there for the fact that we already recognize the level of the water, high tide events, even the extreme high tide events, means gravity is not our friend. So we have to start preparing for those situations that will happen more often. The same canals bring the plastics and the pollutants down to the bay. So our partner in all this is the South Florida Water Management District, the regional entity that we pay our property taxes to that controls that canal. So we are focusing our work on adaptation along the shorelines, of course, but also along the canal lines, along the banks, along the issues where the city and county canals feed in. If we can't run the drainage system, we're going to have major problems living into the next decades here in Miami-Dade County. But we think we can, and we have the agreement of the Water Management District to work with us on this problem. So there are all sorts of flooding issues. There are issues that flooding can come from the east to the west. The Everglades restoration has moved the water from Lake Okeechobee south to the Everglades. Because of our lime rock, porous lime rock, it can actually seep into the western suburbs. So we have to work to, create barriers for the flooding that can come that way. We obviously can have rain events. We're used to that. We're in the subtropics, 60 inches a year. But we could get one of those really terrific events like they had in Houston several years ago. And that really will, the canal system and our drainage system is not prepared for that. So we have to think in the extremes in some situations. All these events tie together, and that's again why we think of stresses and shocks, and that's the kind of work we can do and work with you on. We pledge to work with you on as a partner with our city. Next slide. In the sea level rise strategy, we really focus on 5 major approaches. Now this is higher level. To get this to fix on the boundary, within the boundaries of Miami Springs, we'd have to do the next level of detailed planning. But it really does focus on some of the things that are already on the landscape and the things that the county's planning. One of our 5 strategies is make the SMART plan the future structure of Miami-Dade County, our major buses and transit systems. Those have to be able to work under the worst set of conditions when we can't perhaps drive certain places. So that's one of the 5 major approaches. Next slide, please. Different document now, switching from adapting to climate change to trying to do our part to reduce the cause. Talked a little bit about that earlier. What I want to emphasize here is we have a draft document out from the mayor's direction, which would have us reduce our greenhouse gas emissions in the community, not just those controlled by the county, but community-wide by 50% by 2030, 100% by 2050. These are exactly what the International Panel on Climate Change recommended this morning that the targets be if we're going to just slow the increase caused by climate change. So I want to say, we're not going to go over the report, but it's out draft. We welcome the opportunity to get your comments as we make revisions this fall. Next slide. These are those goals that we have set. Next slide, please. Regional work is real important. Just want to underline this, that the 4 counties are working now. We're in 12 years of working together on these issues. That's really important. It's been supported by the county commission, financially, in all ways. And we're finally planning an in-person summit in early December in Palm Beach County. So fingers crossed that it's safe for everyone to attend. Next slide. So there is some really important, exciting new grant funds now available at the state of Florida level. The governor and the legislature authorized over $500 million in grants, and also another $500 million in converting from septics to sewer. Don't know if there's any of those issues still remaining. I don't think so.
We don't have them in Miami
But
Springs.
so sticking to that first one, there are some prerequisites necessary to start the application process. We can help you check those boxes so that you don't need to hire a consultant or put staff on that. What we'll need to do is find out where are the focus areas. And they don't want full applications. They want proposals by the end of the month. So this is an important place to
Okay.
focus. If the DEP, if you get over the first hurdle, then they'll ask you to go further into the process and we can help on that. This is about flooding, not just sea level rise, but flooding.
Right.
And what we don't know yet in the same specificity that we know about what Tallahassee did, because their session's over, is what will be the final outcome of the federal government. In the infrastructure bill that you hear about being debated, over $1 trillion is money for local governments to work on these issues. We just don't know the details, but we'll be tracking that same way we track the DEP money, and where we see the alignment and the actual details, we'll be communicating them via our newsletter and any other method we can. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, members of the commission, and glad to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Murley. Are there any questions? No, sir. It's, sorry. It's just from the council. No problem. But you can make a comment during public. You're signed up to speak and you can do then from the council. Yes, sir.
Yes, through the chair. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Murley, thank you for being here tonight. Nice presentation. Some of the stuff I think many of the residents were not aware of that you just shared with us. Relative to the grant program that you mentioned, you said that the infrastructure program, of course, isn't solidified yet to the point that we're in a position that you would be able to answer questions relative to it until it's more clarified. When do you anticipate that might be?
Well,
With a potential vote this week by the Senate and the House in September?
oh, in the US side, yeah. I'm just guessing like everybody else, Vice
Yeah, sure.
Mayor. You know, what I read only, I have no better information, is that, you know, hopefully it'll finish in the Senate. But these things just seem to get caught up. And my gut feeling is they want to pass something. How the Congress gets itself to do it is, I'm not sure.
Sir, my question is more about the resiliency relative to the grant writing. And
Yep.
once that's been established, the procedure you just showed us will be what we follow to get grant requests to you, and you'll work with us.
Two different sources of funds. One is coming from the
I'm
state.
certain some of that infrastructure money will end up going
Yeah,
to the.
no, what I want to key you up on
Yeah.
is the state money.
Okay.
That money is available. It's now in the hands of the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. They have laid out the step one, which is to do a proposal to the grant writers. That's not the full application. That's due by the end of the month. And there are some things required that the proposal have, which we're here to say we're glad to help.
Yes.
That is not the federal money.
Okay.
So the
Okay,
state
no,
money-
that's what I want
Yeah,
clarified.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question. I could have been more clear.
And Mr. Murley, and as we've discussed, the flooding issue is a huge concern to our city. We had what I call the Memorial Day event a little over a year ago,
Yes.
where areas of our city, throughout the city, it wasn't, and I know it was throughout the county, but it was debilitating. And we want to make sure that we had homes that suffered severe damage. We have, as you know, we're a small 3 square mile city, triangular shape, and 2 sides of the triangle are bordered by canals, the Ludlam Canal and the Miami River. So flooding greatly affects us. Plus, we have within the city a lot of drainage canals that, you know, they need reinforcement. You know, they constantly maintenance, but they help with the flooding. So these are the kinds of issues that we greatly appreciate your office assisting us with grants for that. Like I've mentioned to you, we're not a large city like Doral or Hialeah or Miami Beach that have the resources to have their own sustainability officers available. And any help that you can provide us with that, with addressing these issues, um, we need the resources
county
to
will
do
be
that.
applying, but the mayor has told us anything we can do to help the cities also really use the information that we've assembled. Much of it's on our website. So it's really about making sure you have the right addresses and website addresses, and Karina can help you with that.
Rena, and
Yeah, and then get an idea so we can kind of scope it. And this is not not a substitute for working with your legislative members come session, you know. But this is a one-time, the federal government, passed the American Security Act, right?
mhm,
I think cities in the county got funds. They put a lot of money into each state, and the legislature allocated large sums to the things we're talking about. Those only have to be spent over the next 4 years. So that's why it's more important now, because after those 4 years, the legislature may not get that number back up to that. It'll be sizable, but right now it's at an all-time high at totally 612 million.
wonderful. Well, any other questions?
Just a comment, Mayor and Council.
Yes.
We are on target to submit an application by the 31st of August. So
Wonderful.
Well-informed staff.
we were working on the draft today.
And you have an item on your agenda, 11B, which is a request for a CDBG MIT grant, which comes from Florida Department of Environmental Protection for $2 million for canal bank restoration.
So
That item's-
CDBG,
We're doing both.
Yeah,
I'm
that's-
doing the
there are
resiliency and
multiple levels of funding, and your staff's on top of things are applying to what was called the Hurricane Irma money, was allocated to
Right.
Recovery Florida, right?
yes,
This is new. This is not driven by our hurricane recovery bill, but by the legislature having money to allocate from the American Security Act.
Okay, great.
So you gotta try too. That's good. That's
And
perfect.
these are long-term projects that we need to undertake immediately, because the next flooding event like that could happen at any moment. It could be due to a hurricane or unexpected, like it was with just a storm that kind of sat over the county for a long time and flooded the whole county. So thank you so much. We appreciate very much your information. Anything that you can make recommendations to our city, like I said, that, the cities around us that might have the resources, the staffing to undertake these improvements for the cities, whenever there are resources available that you could pass on to us, we'd greatly appreciate
There
it.
is a webinar tomorrow.
Right.
That was on the
Yes.
slide. I didn't highlight it, but it's,
On-
1 to 2, I think.
yeah.
Yes.
So, and that's the kind of thing we'll try to do. We just keep trying to keep the information flowing. It's such a new program in Tallahassee that they're kind of trying to move it as quickly as they can and do it in a way that everybody has the same information. So thank you so much.
Thank you
Appreciate
very
the
much.
opportunity to be
Thank
here.
you for your time. Okay, so now I'd like to again mention that we have a very special guest here today for the next agenda items. We have agenda item 12B. Well, we'll go to 12C, I'm sorry. A request to discuss the rapid transit zone. And we're very honored to have Vice Chair Gilbert here. Also the TPO Director, Eileen Boucher, is here. We also have from Mayor Levine Cava's office, representing Mayor Levine Cava, is Ada. We're thrilled that you take the time, all of you have taken the time to be here in our small community and discuss these very issues that are very, very important to our future and to our residents, and very concerning. And I'll just give a little background first, Vice Chair Gilbert, if I may, on the rapid transit zone. How we became aware of it is the vice chair was former mayor of Miami Gardens, and as such, he was involved with the Miami-Dade County League of Cities, which we're involved. It's the Miami-Dade County League of Cities is an organization of elected officials, mayors, and other elected officials. Councilman Fahet is our representative also on it. And we meet regularly to discuss issues that impact all municipalities or a great deal of municipalities, and work together to try to resolve them, to provide not just support, but political muscle to be able to address these issues. So the vice chair, because he was a former, he was formerly part of the Miami-Dade League of Cities, reached out to the League of Cities in, I guess, late May, and said that you had a proposal, a rapid transit zone, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to give background, that you wanted the League of Cities to review and to provide you with input. So we became aware of it through that. Subsequently, in June, the League of Cities prepared a presentation on the impacts of your draft proposal. And we had several meetings after that through the Rapid Transit Zone team meeting, discussing the implications of it, trying to really understand how it impacts each city. As a result of the worksheet that the League of Cities developed, our city manager and city planner worked the calculations out for our city. And I can only use the expression that I've used all along. It was jaw-dropping. The implications, the impact to our city were just astounding. And the vice chair knows we spoke today about this. It would totally devastate our community. It would impact, and it impacts every city. This is something that impacts pretty much corridors all along the county. So our community is just one small part of everything that would be impacted. I would let the vice chair speak about it, but just want to let everyone know that we spoke today about the impact specifically to our Bird area, which is within the radius of the Metro Rail station. And it's my understanding that he understands the impact to that, and that's not your intent to affect single family residences such as ours. So Vice Chair, if you wouldn't mind.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, council members, Mr. Manager, Madam Assistant City Manager, Madam Clerk. I'm Oliver Gilbert. I'm the County Commissioner for District 1. The chairperson of the TPO with me today. I have Eileen Bouclé. She's our Executive Director. Nathan Kogan. He's the Director of Planning and Zoning. My staff, Brandon and Bruno. Thank you all for accommodating us. I appreciate it. Listen, you said I'm the honored guest. I'm not. I sat in your seats before. I just want to thank you for the work you all do. Your residents may never fully understand how difficult it is to be a city council person and the mayor of a city, trying to balance what you know are the limitations and also what you know has to happen. And it's very difficult. I appreciate the difficulty of your job. And I thank you for taking the time to actually speak with me today, because the rapid transit zone, the RTZ, when I brought it, when I had the idea, and I guess it stems from the fact that I am also the chair of the TPO, is I start off with one basic premise. And it's ironic that Jim is here today, because my basic premise is that tomorrow is undefeated. It's coming no matter what. Tomorrow's coming no matter what, from an environmental resiliency perspective, from a population growth perspective, from a traffic congestion perspective. Tomorrow will be here. What we've seen in this county previously is we just failed to plan. The RTZ allows us to plan. The reason why it's structured the way it is, why it's not an ordinance, not yet, is because we've undertaken what is possibly the most inclusive conversation on planning that this county has ever endeavored upon. We started talking to cities. I'm not just a former member of the League of Cities. I'm a former president. I'm a former national board member, the National League of Cities. So the idea that I would do something that would squash the rights of cities is, I am a county commissioner now, but I still believe that local government closest to the people, is more reflective of the people. But I also believe that right now in this county, we are having at least 34 different conversations about planning and zoning and traffic and transit. And we have to have one conversation. We have to. And that's not a Miami Springs conversation or a Miami Gardens conversation or Miami Lakes or Hialeah or Miami or Miami Beach. It is a Miami-Dade County conversation. Look, our failing to plan for tomorrow won't stop tomorrow from coming. Our failing to plan for transit won't stop cars from being on the road. Our failing to plan for adequate housing won't stop people from moving here, people from being born. It's going to happen no matter what. Us planning for it, not from a Miami Springs perspective, but from a county perspective, allows us to actually resource it. It allows us to invest billions of dollars in transportation and know that we're actually preparing for tomorrow that does take more cars off the road. You know, Jim, as an aside, you mentioned the studies that came out. One of the more troubling studies was the slowing down of the current in the ocean. We have no idea how we're going to fix. We're completely dependent on the shoreline being where it is. If the water goes up a little bit, it's not just the people on Miami Beach who it's going to hurt. It's this entire community. When he said that the water over here in your city is connected to the bay, what he should have said is we are all inextricably intertwined. We don't realize it because we don't live on the beach. But if we don't fix that problem, it's our problem. It is not their problem. It is our collective problem. Transit is our problem. Housing is our problem. RTC allows us to address that. Look, when we started out, we started with the conversation. I didn't take it to committee. I took it to the people, took it to you all, took it to the League of Cities, because I wanted your input. So before there is an actual ordinance that's actually presented to a committee, we're going to have all these conversations, like the conversation we had this morning, where I said that, yes, we will take the bird, we'll take that off the map.
The bird section.
The bird
And
section, we'll take
could
that off
you,
the map.
Vice Chair, could you repeat that? I think that
Yeah.
you will hear a collective sigh of relief
Well-
from our residents that you, in discussing
take
with you,
the bird section off the map.
will not be included in
Okay,
the
yeah, we're
rapid
good.
transit zone.
That's not.
I wanted you to hear it from the Vice Chair.
That is not. Listen, I understand, and it's not just Miami Springs, but we have areas along mass transit corridors that are completely built out with single family homes. We're not trying to change those areas. That's not our purpose. Our purpose is to actually provide for areas where we know we're going to need mass transit hubs, areas where we know we can build, and areas that we know we can build value in. We can take that value out and put it back into a system so that we can actually afford to not only just build rail, not just build corridors, but actually afford to have them priced at a way that people can actually afford to ride. So I have no problem coming and saying that we're going to take that portion out because it makes sense, but it's going to make sense in other parts also. It's going to make sense in other parts also. That's them clap me down. That's
There's a delay. There's a
a
delay.
whole 15-second delay. That's amazing. Yeah.
They're on a delay.
Sorry.
I could have actually run downstairs and told them. Yeah, no,
To the
that was
stairwell,
nice. That was nice. But no,
And I want to tell everyone that the Vice Chair called me this morning unexpectedly. And we had the long discussion about it. He knew it was on our agenda and we had the long discussion about it. And he's the one that, offered, he said, I want to be at your meeting. So
yeah,
just want everyone to know
listen,
that.
and just
Say this.
how we go forward, mayor, council members of the community. Look, I know how it's been in the past, where the state tells the county they're going to do something and they don't really ask your opinion. The county tells the cities we're going to do something, they don't ask your opinion. I don't doubt that there'll be things that we disagree on, but there won't be a time where I don't come and talk to you about it and try to find a workaround. That's not, and we can't do that with this, because I don't just need to be able to do it. I need your buy-in. And it's not just your buy-in. I need everyone's buy-in. We have to do this together. Look, for years, we've been talking about building rail in South Florida, and I'll never criticize the people who came before me, but I'll tell you that while their statements were optimistic, because based on the current circumstances, we couldn't afford to do the rail. Based on land use, we couldn't afford to do the rail. Based on federal formulas, we couldn't afford to do the rail. We're going to attack this from every possible direction. We're going to attack it from every possible direction and use every possible resource, and we're going to need everybody. From Miami Springs to Homestead, from Doral to Miami Beach. I'm fond of saying to people that Miami is the brand. When we go someplace, people, you say you're from Miami Springs, they say Miami. Miami Beach is the picture. When people think of Miami, that's the picture they think of. But we're actually Miami-Dade County. It's places like Miami Springs. People who built equity in their homes. People built lives here. And we're not going to do anything to disturb that. We're not doing anything to disturb that. And so I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you. I appreciate the opportunity to have a continued conversation with you. Because ultimately, independent of taking that particular area off, we need to continue our conversation about how we actually address mass transit in a real way here in Miami-Dade County. And I
Excuse me.
leave with this.
Please.
I leave with this. I leave you all with this, and I'll take questions. I don't get into things assuming that we'll be able to do it. What I do know is we're going to have some resolution. I won't ever be one of those elected officials who run for office and say they're going to do something and then don't try to do it and just, no, I'm going to try to do it. And it'll work or it won't, but we will answer the question about whether we're serious about mass transit and building out the system right now. We're going to answer that question because as far as I can tell, people have been saying things that have been turned out to be false from Miami Gardens all the way to Florida City for the past 40 years. For the past 40 years, there have been promises made and broken. We will have the conversation. We will decide as a community what we want. And then we have to make that work. That is my commitment to you all, that we will do that, all of us together. I appreciate you giving me the time, and I'd love to take questions if you have them.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. Questions?
Mr. Vice Commissioner, thank you for coming. And I really appreciate that you're here tonight. And even though I don't live in the Birch section, I'm very relieved to hear that. For our residents who do live there, when I heard about this 3 days ago, it just blew me out of the water, and there was a lot of concerns, and I had a million questions. Now, I am a supporter of rapid transit. I was born and raised in one of the most dense cities in the United States, New York City. I've been riding subway since I was 13 years old. I went to public school on the subway, middle school and high school. I didn't have school buses. So, but in the city of New York, as you're very familiar with, I'm sure, the mass transit was built because of the density. And then the city expanded out. And so I was astonished when I first moved to Miami-Dade County, that we didn't have as robust a rapid transit system as we could have. And so, and if we had one that I could use, I would use as a professor at Miami-Dade College at Kendall campus. I can't get there by rail. And so that tells you right there that, it's complicated. So I appreciate the fact that you and others are thinking forward, right? And because, anyone who drives on the Palmetto or 95 in the morning or the evenings is going like, geez, there's got to be a better way to do this. So I appreciate that. But I think that, there needs a lot more thought to go into this. I mean, the idea of building around train hubs may work in some places, may be feasible in some places, but not here. And that's, and so I was happy to hear those comments. But, by the same token, as an elected official who's also responsible for coming up with plans for the city, but also we don't live isolated, we live in a county. And so we try to work with other cities and through the League of Cities. I appreciate that you all have to take these actions to begin to plan, right? So failure to plan is, it's planning to fail, right? So, and I will personally commit to any time that I can to contribute to any of this conversation, looking more broadly, because I do believe that we need a greater ability to have rapid transit, move people around in a quicker way, especially folks who are folks who are,
That's a delay. It takes a long time to get down there.
So funny.
I guess we got to speak like in the United Nations.
Yeah.
You say a few
Like a
words
translation,
and then you
gotta
stop,
pause. You gotta pause, yeah.
wait for the translation.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'll leave it with that because I'm sure my colleagues have comments to say in that. But yes to the future of rapid transit, no in the birds. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Thank you. No preemption of Miami Springs, of
No.
our authority over our own zoning, our density, our planning, building, permitting zones. Those, we're a tiny little city, and any preemption would devastate us.
So this is where we are. This is where we are on the idea of preemption. We don't need to preempt cities. This is what we do need though. We need certainty. So, and it won't affect you all, but it'll affect the system in other places. Once you put the densities and uses in place, and we make the plans and we plan to build around those densities and uses, we can't have subsequent city councils come and change those densities and uses. So, and that's why people came up with the idea of preemption initially. Not because we wanted to take the authority or take the work. The county doesn't necessarily want the authority or want the work. What we need is certainty. Because what we're looking to do is invest billions of dollars in mass transit. We can't decide to invest billions of dollars in mass transit because a city down south says, hey, you know what? This is the proper density. We want to have a city center here and all these things. And then in 4 years, after we've spent $100 million on planning, somebody comes and changes it. And that's the conversation that Richard Cooper and President Joe Cordino of the League of Cities, that's the conversation we're having. How we strike that balance, how we actually let you all put the stuff in place, give us your zoning, we incorporate it in a map. But once it's in a map, this is our collective agreement about how we are going to go forward. Because then that allows people like Nathan and Eileen to actually sit down and come up with how we plan it and how we pay for it. So we need that certainty built into the system. Right now, we don't have that certainty built into the system. Right now, it's literally 34 different conversations. There has to be a collective, hey, this is what we're doing. And that means you giving us what your land use is and we incorporate it in. Once it's adopted, that is what we need to go forward with. We don't need to preempt, we just need certainty.
Vice Chair.
Commissioner Gilbert, thank you so much for being here tonight. I think it means an awful lot to everybody sitting here relative to this issue. And I, for one, in any small way that I might be able to, would like to offer some help going forward in what you want to do. And we thank you for at least excluding Miami Springs in the process. We appreciate that.
You all know every time you clap, they're going to clap 30 seconds later, right? So you know.
Any other? Yes.
Just when he's
Yes. Vice Chair Best would like to.
Well, I don't know that we need the commissioner to be standing there. I've got a presentation I'd like to deliver to everybody.
Well, okay.
Unless other members might have questions of him.
Yes, of the Vice Chair.
Through
Go
the
ahead.
chair. So now that the bird section is out of the way, what's on the back burner? What's your plan? How would you compensate?
We don't need to necessarily compensate for taking the bird section out. So when we looked at the map, and that's what I was downstairs talking to Nathan about, the map doesn't necessarily allow for, the bird section is a built out residential area, basically. You weren't gonna, it was what I call a hypothetical, completely theoretical type argument that people were gonna have. You're not building out, you're not redeveloping all of these single family homes anyway. You're not going to do that. So we don't need to do that there. The other area that I think that was affected is an area in Miami Springs that we can't develop because it's in the what do they call it?
The Abraham
Airport
Tract.
Marine District.
Well,
Yeah.
we can't
By the
develop there.
Miami Airport.
So, but there's a lot
Miami
of area around these corridors, and right now, honestly, what we're looking at for the most part are the nodes that we know we have to develop. We know we have to develop nodes in certain places. We know there has to be certain densities in those places, but in most of those places, the density is pretty there right now. We just need it to stay there. We need the certainty of it. The certainty of this matters. We can almost look, once we have the certainty of densities and uses along the corridors, we can plan for it. it would be detrimental to us if 5 years into our plan, a city changed it. It would be detrimental to us. And so we cannot have that happen. And that's what the RTZ is meant to do, build certainty into the system. So we don't need a backup plan for Miami Springs. That was never going to be redeveloped anyway.
And I want to just mention that the information that we presented here was the information that we had from the League of
Yes.
Cities. As I stated, this started at early summer. We were working with the information we had, the draft proposal. It came to the point where the city manager and I said, we have to make the city aware of this. This is the draft proposal. It may not come to be, but we couldn't keep it from the council and the city any longer. So that's why we presented it. I understand that everyone got very upset about it, but it was the best information we had available, and we felt the responsibility to present it to the council and the city. And very graciously, Vice Chair Gilbert reached out to me today, knowing that it was on the agenda, and offered to come to
And look, Mayor,
discuss that. That was not the intent.
Mayor, as we come up with curated maps that actually, because the initial proposal was just, hey, essentially half-mile radius around all the corridors. These are the densities, and it's just out there. That doesn't make sense for Miami Springs. It doesn't make sense for, El Portal either. I mean, it doesn't make sense for a number of places. So we're coming up with a more curated map, so that will actually be more particular. But it's part of the conversation of making the legislation. By the time we actually bring this to committee, it's going to look completely different than it does, because after each of these conversations, every time I meet with Joe, we make little changes, whether it's a text change or a change to the map. Our conversation, Nathan, hey, let's do this. Let's make this change. So we're making changes, always trying to find the balance.
Through the chair,
Yes.
is there another way that we can have a collective certainty through ballot votes in conclusion together with the commissioners voting on the future ordinance that you're proposing?
I don't know if we can have through ballot vote. No, I don't know if we're going to, I don't know that the system is necessarily built for that. But I think at some point there is going to be, in some way or another, a vote on how we actually move forward in transit, because we know that we're going to apply for a lot of federal money, and we're hopeful. We've had some good conversations with our congresspersons and with the people in Washington. We've had some success in Tallahassee this last year. But ultimately, when people tell you that they're going to build something, but somebody else is going to pay for it, they're lying to you. We're going to pay for this. Yeah, we're going to pay for this. So at some point, there's going to have to be a conversation, not just with the residents of Miami Springs, but Miami-Dade County, about how we actually pay for this. And let me just be clear about something else. We're going to pay for it no matter what. If we build it, we're going to pay for it. If we don't build anything and don't do anything, we're going to pay for it. There's a cost to how much time, because we're so used to it. We don't realize how much time we lose on road in the car. We just don't. So we didn't plan Miami-Dade County in a way that allows us to be successful right now. It's not like New York in some ways. You don't have this decentralized employment areas. We're all going basically the same areas at the same time. That's a recipe for gridlock if everybody's going in the car. So we know we have to do something about that. We know that from our economy, from our commerce, and from the commerce of our personal lives, like wanting to spend time with your family, it's going to cost us more and more and more as the years go along. We're going to pay for this one way or the other. The question is whether we plan. Are we going to plan? We haven't planned previously. I'm just suggesting that we should.
Any other questions?
Yes, through the chair. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Gilbert, for coming and allaying all the concerns of the residents. I don't envy your position. I know that there's mass transit corridors, and not all of them have single family zones around it. I can see where it's going to be an uphill battle to try to get all these municipalities to kind of acquiesce some type of control over their zoning rights. So I don't envy that aspect of what you're trying to do, although I do agree it's a noble cause. So just to be clear, right, because, yeah, I know you made it clear that in the bird section where it's single family residential, it doesn't make sense to do that. So that would be exempted, but also the Abraham tract, which would also within the city boundaries, you're saying that because of the airport, is that also off the
It's
table?
off the table.
Okay, so then Miami Springs is exempt entirely.
Well, I don't use words
Pre-
like exempt.
Preemption.
I don't use
Okay.
words like exempt. No.
Please, I beg,
No. I don't use words like exempt because what will happen is essentially when the map is adopted, it'll be adopted with your current zoning in it. So your zoning will be the zoning. So there won't be density added in it. It's going to be, well, we can't have the Abraham. We can't have that in there. That's just something we can't do. So, and the bird track, it will be adopted as is. So single family homes, single family homes. So, and this is something that I'm authoring. So it's my ordinance. I'm bringing it. I'm telling you that that's what's going to be in there. Your zoning is going to be there. The
Vice-
reason I don't use words for exempt as exempt, because it's important. If we start exempting cities, if we use words like exempt, it's going to be very difficult for me to explain to the city of Miami why I exempted Miami Springs and didn't exempt the city of Miami or didn't exempt Miami Gardens. So I don't use words because this is going to be our common fight, but it's just not appropriate to change your zoning there. So it's the smart and practical and best thing to do. So we're going to leave your zoning in place there.
So the two areas within Miami Springs where the
gonna
zoning
be
would have
exactly what they
changed
are.
will remain intact
Yeah, absolutely.
going forward.
Vice
Thank you.
Chair, there is a section in your draft ordinance where it says that there's the potential for a city to keep its zoning. However, if someone applies for rezoning and the city denies it, that they could appeal to the county. So
That's
can
the,
you
that's
address
the
that? Because
structure.
that would defeat the
Well, no.
preempting the city of Miami Springs, because in essence, they could overrule us.
Well, no, that's the structure that Joe and I are trying to work on, exactly how that looks. So I don't presuppose that the administrative structure is going to be that way. Joe's major concern and as I understand it, is preemption and taking the authority out of the city's hands. My major concern is density, but more to the point, certainty. And I think that those things don't actually have to be mutually exclusive. I think you can have both of those. I think you can have the city have control. And a good example is this. If you all had put your zoning in the Abraham tract, for instance, if you had zoning and you wanted 60 units per whatever there, and we built out a plan with 60 units per forever there, it would be a problem for us if you actually, after we built everything, said we're going to go to single family homes. I don't need to control the actual zoning. I just need it not to be changeable once you agree to it. Once you agree, you agree. So what I'm agreeing is that the single family homes, it stays the same, and Abraham tract, it stays the same. Now, could you all still change that zoning if you wanted to? Yes, you could. But we're not in the,
But if
yeah,
we
not our
should,
style.
if someone should, and I'll give you an exact example. And again, when the vice chair is speaking about Joe, he means
Joe Cordino, the
Joe
president
Cordino,
of
who's the
League of
mayor
Cities.
of the League of Cities. It's Mayor Pinecrest, and he's the president of the League of Cities, sorry. Should, in our bird section, a developer buy several areas of land, several homes over a period of a year or two, and then apply for rezoning for that, and we were to deny it because it's single-family homes, that there is not the ability for that developer to bypass us and go to the
He
county.
couldn't come to us on that. He couldn't come to
Okay,
us
it
on that.
appeals, it appears to me that right now that is in here,
Well,
that
again,
that is allowed, within your draft proposal, that there's that
well,
ability, which we
respectfully, it is,
would
but
totally
it's,
oppose that.
it is, but I don't think it is in the way you think it is. So that's where we actually in the RTZ actually provide for a higher zoning in that area. So if you all had it for single family and someone came in and they wanted to, and we had it for single family, there's no ability to appeal because we have it for single family also. That's more applicable when you all have it for single family and we have it for,
Okay.
multifamily or whatever it is. It becomes more applicable then. So I understand what you're saying. And I don't know that structure is going to be the same, but even under that structure, because what we're saying is the levels would be the same, it wouldn't be applicable.
Okay. We do have Vice Mayor Best would like to make a statement, and then after that, I'll, if there are no other questions from here, we'll do the public forum. I held the public forum off until we heard from the Vice Chair Gilbert, because I figured a lot of persons, after hearing this, you may feel that your questions are answered and that your statements are different. So I wanted you to have the opportunity to do that before we go through the lengthy public forum. So.
Thank you again,
Vice
Commissioner.
Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, through the chair. I put something together here that kind of speaks to a lot of this in a very general way, and there is some specificity involved in it too, but so it goes something like this. Much of what we are in the grand scheme of events lay directly proportional to our backgrounds, our sustenance, our vocations in life, our aspirations, our dreams, and oftentimes, sadly or not, in the reality of manifest destiny and or the luck of the draw, or realized opportunities. Government must forever hold itself subject to all of these and more. Our Republican system of democratic representation binds us to legislate in such a fashion. Thusly, the tiers of responsibility are codified according to their appropriate levels: federal, state, county, and local municipality. Taxing authority, if you will, looks something of an inverted pyramid, with the Home Rule Charter playing a critical role in ascertaining how any one municipality expresses its independence and levies ad valorem tax. To be clear, most oppose taxes in general, but be it income, property, sales, or even the half penny. Most, in any town USA, are compromised by this structure relative to their abilities to live a meaningful life for themselves and for their families. We talk about the TIC, the county tax appraiser, determines the rollback rate every year, of course. It reflects property values, either plus or minus, in any municipality within a fiscal cycle. Hypothetically, a household garnering $40,000 a year would not attempt to realize property in Coral Gables, in Miami Beach, El Portal, Pinecrest, Miami Shores, or Miami Springs. That said, those of twice that income or more would not vehemently oppose higher millage rates in such locations, which bring substantial public services and superior law enforcement capacities. Is this to say we are exclusive? We're elitist? We're non-compensating, or perhaps worse? No, not at all. What it means for Miami Springs, in fairness, is that we have founded, set, and maintained a living standard we wish to uphold as a party to Home Rule Charter. Projects which infringe upon or violate that provisioning stand against all that we have strove to build and maintain. And we need to stand united in opposition to such measures. We need to stand in opposition to the upper end of the pyramid at the state, federal, and county levels, consubstantial to funding. Accordingly, we must go on record, and have, some of what you just heard, to back away from continuing funding opportunities emanating from said agencies for provisioning and redirect our agenda toward more purposeful endeavors. Certainly, state and county funding in the pipeline relative to the South Royal Medium Project and the East Drive stormwater mitigation initiatives represent significant improvements to our entire city on the east side. And I stress the operative word, entire. The County Commissioner, Oliver Gilbert, who is with us, graces us with his presence tonight, his rapid transit zone ordinance, which was obviously a draft, as he just pointed out, this consideration must be vehemently opposed, and I think he took that tonight very graciously. along with the initiative of the Northwest Corridor Pedestrian Bridge, which plays right into concurrence with the RTZ density nightmare. Repositioning our strength or our voice to fight another day was proffered by many field commanders in military history, specifically Alexander the Great in the 4th century BC, Napoleon in the 19th century, George Patton, 1944. And basically, these things remind us, provide us with a stark reminder that alterations will win the day. Step back, regroup, bring it back. A good defense is a strong offense. Commissioner Gilbert's revolution is not a bad measure for Miami Gardens and certain environs, not at all. But perhaps the good commissioner and his planning team need to rehuddle, maybe with the Florida League of Cities, as he personally mentioned, with alternative thinking. On another front, the southern front, if you will, we all need to stand in strong support with Mayor Mitchell and this council in our city skirmish with county government in opposition to the State Road 112/36th Street flyover, which has been proposed. More to follow. And finally, good citizens, thank you for all being here tonight in a positive show of support. Thank you, Commissioner Gilbert, for being here. And as a guiding light for us and the city we all love. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, for a very eloquent and resounding statement. Okay, so right now I'd like to open this up for public comment. And again, as I said, I reserved the public comment so you could hear from Vice Chair Gilbert, his proposal. Again, the draft that we presented was the information that we had available, the worksheets that we had done based on the information that we had available, that as the Vice Chair said, is a draft and they continue to work for it, but we wanted to I know it upset a lot of people, but it was important that you knew the information that we knew to date. And, you know, and going forward, I think we've heard good news that this won't impact the city of Miami Springs. And we'll be working very hard with the Vice Chair, working on those other sections to make sure that long-term, this won't impact the city of Miami Springs, any rezoning ability. So if there's still people that would like to speak right now, we are just speaking on the rapid transit zone. Okay. And then we'll go to the pedestrian bridge, but I've got a list of names here and I'll call you up. We're implementing 2-minute time limit and a timer will go off because of the number of people that are signed off to speak. As soon as you hear the timer, it doesn't matter if you're mid-sentence, please be courteous to everyone else and say thank you and leave the podium because we have a lot of people and we want to give the opportunity to everyone to be heard. Okay, so I the pedestrian bridge we'll discuss after. Right now, I want to, while the Vice Chair is here, that he can listen to, well, let me just, I guess I should mention, put it all together. I spoke, wondering how many comments we have. We have, how many people, can you raise your hand, want to speak on the rapid transit zone? Okay, and some of you want to speak about both?
Put them together.
Okay, so let me go ahead and before, if you'll be patient, before we do the public comment, let me give you an update on the pedestrian bridge project. We have all heard your concerns about the pedestrian bridge project. There are significantly, and I have spoken with the county, with the Department of Transit and Public Works, with Commissioner Sosa, with several people about the project, and said that the timing is off. 2 years ago when we passed this, there were a lot of things that hadn't happened in the city, and I think everyone has been spooked, if nothing else, by the TGK expansion, the potential expansion at TGK that ultimately was moved to Metro West, by the increase in crime and homelessness that we've been experiencing along Northwest 36th Street as a result of the pandemic and other issues, by this proposal itself of increased density around the Hialeah Metro Rail station. So even though some residents have spoken in favor of this and have approached me in favor of this, by far the majority of residents that have reached out to me, and I think to the rest of the council, have been against the pedestrian bridge. So I have pursued this at the county level, and Commissioner Sosa and Ms. Boucher is here. It will be coming up before the TPO, Transportation Planning Organization, again, with the request to indefinitely postpone the project. We will lose the funding for it. So, we will most certainly lose the funding for it. I spoke to Vice Chair Gilbert about this today. Also, when he called, he asked about the pedestrian bridge project, and he made the commitment, your chair of the TPO, that if that's what the community wants, that you will support that, and we will indefinitely postpone the project and revisit it down the year. So I hope that the collective blood pressure of everyone here online watching has come down a little bit, that some of you feel comfortable enough that you can, grab a glass of wine when you get home and put your feet up. But with that said, you have two pieces of information. Yes, sir.
Ryan Fisher with DTPW. If you guys have any.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were here.
Sorry.
Thank you so much for being here. Okay. This is Department of Transit and Public Works, the county, which was the lead agency for this project.
So I'm the manager of bridge engineering for Miami-Dade County. Good evening.
Closer to the mic.
Mayor and councilman, members of the public. I am actually a member of the community as well. So
Oh,
I
okay. Good to
understand
know.
everything that's going on. So if you guys have any questions about the project, it was prioritized, is currently funded, obviously, and we have an engineering firm on board to begin the planning study. It's just the planning study, and it would be to actually host public meetings to do the environmental study and look at alternative analysis. So obviously, whatever Eileen and TPO decides, I believe all the funding on this project is state or local toll match. So the county is not really putting up funds to fund at least this phase of the project. So we'll meet with the TPO, and whatever we get told, we'll go forward doing.
Okay.
So any questions, please let me know.
I think you just said it all right there.
Thank you. Is there any questions from the council?
Through the chair.
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to direct city attorney and staff requesting a new resolution in opposition to the Smart Trail Connector, also known as the Pedestrian Bridge, to indefinitely end the proposed project and immediately advise the county, FDOT, and all affiliated parties of the city's new position. And that's where I stand. I mean, we don't have to vote now,
Okay.
maybe after. the
All right,
open
let's
forum.
go ahead and listen to the.
I'd like to
Public.
second that with discussion.
Okay. All right, any discussion?
Yeah, through the chair. So just to kind of review, because I think that this is a good example of how government can work. On May 5th, when we had the new council had just been in place, and you had a very good idea of having a council workshop to talk about all the goals and all the projects that the city had that were in place and in different aspects of being done. And we talked about everything, and the last project that was on that council workshop was about the pedestrian bridge. And I brought up at that time that I had been hearing from a lot of residents, because I lived 30 years in the bird section. And I talked about that I had been hearing that people really didn't want it. And so I remember at that time, there was, I was getting a great deal of complaints, but there was some pushback, which is understandable because I think it's something that the previous council had passed. The virtues of the project were discussed because I think a compelling argument was made at one point, at least enough to have gotten it to pass. And I said at that time that I was just expressing the sentiments of what I was hearing of the residents that were speaking to me. So after that council workshop, I think the media got a hold of it. It got out, I think, on various outlets because it was discussed in that open council workshop. And I was deluged even more so by complaints. And I kept telling residents, voice your concerns, come to the meeting, voice your concerns. At one point, I even mentioned to a resident, like, listen, you're getting a bunch of petitions, email the petitions, email them before the next council meeting and email everything that you got, scan it, email it to the entire council group. And that was done. So on the council meeting of June 14th, I had heard from so many residents that I asked to have it put on the agenda. And I wanted a discussion to happen about the details of the project, about the status of the project, since we did have a new council, to see where we stood, to see what could be done given all the complaints that I had gotten. Now, I did get, again, some reasonable and understandable pushback about it. There were also some things said about, like, sometimes people sign petitions and they don't really know what they're signing, or they may not necessarily agree or disagree. Be that as it may, I was also told, or at least it was said here, it wasn't told to me directly, but that it's a bad precedent for a council to go back and kind of re-legislate decisions made by previous councils. And my responses at that time on June 14th was, every council, and I said this twice, every council reserves the right to review the decisions made by previous councils, because obviously things change. And I did mention, kind of a closing thing, as I said, I think that residents want to know what the status is. Residents are telling me that, that this was the first they had heard of it. And I know that it was, it was passed and it went through the whole process back in 2019, but people were speaking out. And I made the comment that we are all accountable to our constituents. So the city thankfully did an information session that was at the senior center, and a vast majority of people that were there to talk about the pedestrian bridge and to voice their concerns. And so now I'm glad to hear that the residents are being heard, that's all that I think from the very beginning I was trying to do, was to magnify the concerns of the residents that were speaking out. And I think that everybody here, when we argue about different things, it's a pillow fight. We all respect the fact that we're all up here doing our very best for the city. But I think it's very important, and I'm very pleased to see that we're listening, because I always said from the beginning that this wasn't a debate about, is it paid for? Are we paying for it? Is the state paying for it? Is it above ground? Is it below ground? I always said that's all academic. I start and end with one thing. The vast majority of people don't want it. That's what I'm hearing. So a little battered and bruised after a couple of months of like just trying to like say, hey, like this is what I'm hearing. I'm glad that people came out. I was telling people come out to the meetings, and it was kind of slow to get out, but I'm glad to hear that people, and maybe it kind of like piggybacked on the RTZ thing that people heard about. But I'm glad that people spoke up, and I'm glad that we are listening. And I think that we should all be proud of the fact that we're listening to our constituents and that we're being held accountable by them. And so I do second the motion to pass a resolution to nix the pedestrian bridge.
Through the chair. Through the chair.
Yes.
So as a new member to the council, when this discussion began a few months back, and I want to thank Councilman Fahed for bringing this, because he sparked this conversation. I didn't know anything about this bridge, and I was in Miami Springs in 2019 when the resolution was passed. And so I had conversation with some of the people that I know the best, and I said, tell me what happened 2 years ago that now you're realizing, right? This thing is happening. And it may have been the time of the year when that resolution that was passed. It was right before COVID, and so forth and so on. But I, like Councilman Fahed, have talked to numerous people about this, and thought about how do we address this, and how do we get to the point where we can not only listen to the vote to the residents, but also do something about it. And so I'm speaking in support of the motion, but I do want to say something for the record that I learned also over the last couple of months as we've had these conversations here and at the senior center and other places. Because Mayor Mitchell has been a defender of this, rather a proponent, right? And to me, what I've learned is that her concerns and the reason why this council had a conversation several years ago about a pedestrian bridge, in my view, came from a good place in her thinking, right? And I've come to understand and say, okay, no, I'm against this bridge, but I understand where she was coming from. And so I do want to recognize that, Madam Mayor, that this has been a project, your consideration for safety, for the safety of our residents, for the bike riders, for some of the people that you've seen crossing that train trestle, which is absolutely dangerous, was part of the information that you brought to the council, and in our conversations here, you raised several times. So I'm pleased to support the motion, and I'm pleased that we are part, and that we've had this conversation with the Vice Commissioner, because it is, as my extreme colleague all the way to the extreme right there, just physically talking, right, just sitting down, put it so eloquently that sometimes there are things that have to come together in a way that we can discuss them. But as I was heading here tonight, my wife said to me, "You're gonna take care of this bridge thing, aren't you?" I said, it's on the agenda. I didn't know how. I said, but we're gonna take care of this. But anyway, so those are my words in support. And again, Councilman Fahed, for bringing it to us, and for digging in your heels on it. So thank you.
Vice Mayor, do you have anything to say?
I think I've used up my
Okay.
time.
All right. I think I'll start again with what I said, that the information that I wanted to bring to council is that this is going before the TPO again, with a request that it be postponed indefinitely, due to the timing is just off. The timing in 2019 when this was, and before, because this wasn't just in 2019 when this was being discussed, was just different. Several issues have happened since then, and enough residents are opposed to the project that we'll revisit it some years down the road. So that said, we have a resolution. I don't believe we need a resolution for this at this point, and and I'll just throw this there because we already did a resolution for this. I would say I would rather not have one at this point. And excuse me,
Hmm.
we're discussing. This is a discussion, okay? And I have a right to discuss it just as every member here in the council. So I expect civility here. And you're here to be part of the meeting, but we have an order here. So my position here is that we can revisit the resolution should that be necessary. And again, I'm not, but we did one before. I hate to double track because it lessens the I think, effectiveness of our future resolutions of, every 2 years, something could change if the council wants to continue it to the vote. The other thing is, Heidi, you're on, our city attorney is on the
We need a.
online virtually.
I'm here, Mayor.
We have a discussion, but we haven't had the public forum. Do we need to? I'm guessing we need to hear from the public before we vote on this, or?
I would prefer that.
Huh? Yes, okay.
I would prefer that, yes.
The other
And
thing-
just to clarify, Mayor, I think the resolution, so that everybody's clear, the resolution that's being referenced, the prior resolution is Resolution 2019-3841. And that's the resolution that, where the city council urged the TPO to accelerate the funding for this connection. So as I understand Councilwoman Bravo's motion, it would be to bring back a resolution essentially expressing the council's new direction and desire on this, that the project be indefinitely postponed.
And I have been told, and I want to explain that I have been told in the legwork that I've been doing through the summer, based on the comments that I've received, that we will lose the funding for it. So it'll be indefinitely postponed and there will be no funding for it. So it's not like.
Through the chair,
Mayor?
I think you're quite right, based on the fact that we have nothing really to vote on in front of us right now. This is an other business item for discussion. The city attorney just correctly pointed out that the ordinance itself was 2019-3841, and to expunge that or eliminate it, I think we must vote against that itself. I think tonight, I think you would be well served
Mayor,
by a voice vote, and if unanimous, that would give it plenty of clout.
Mayor?
Heidi, yes.
I think the motion was to bring back a resolution that would make these expressions as stated by Councilwoman Bravo. So if the direction from council is to do that, I would work with Councilwoman Bravo to draft that resolution and bring it back for a full vote at a future council meeting.
Okay. And before we do that, before we vote, we have to listen to public comment, which we should have done earlier. And I keep pushing along to get information because I'm hoping when you hear the information up here, it helps you decide, a kind of realign your public comment. Okay, so let's go ahead and do, for the persons who wish to speak. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, Vice Chair. I'm so sorry. I should have asked if there was anything you wanted to.
Might be helpful just from a TPO perspective. We don't need a resolution. If you all took a voice vote and made a motion tonight and just transmit your minutes to us.
Exactly.
Then
Thank you, Vice Chair.
We need something on the record to reverse what we've done before. So just
Thank
a
you, sir.
voice vote and just transmit your minutes. And you
We
don't have to wait.
greatly appreciate
Thank you,
that.
sir.
Through the chair.
Vice Chair.
Through the chair. I just want to be clear. I appreciate what you said, Vice Commissioner. I just want to make sure that we are following our procedures for resolutions that we have passed, right? And that we follow, make sure that we've done that. I appreciate what he said and that the minutes would suffice, but I want to make sure, I think I heard the attorney say that that is the procedure. In other words, we have to come back to it,
Right. You can't vote on
and
it
that she
tonight.
would work with Councilwoman Bravo on this. I just want to make sure that we don't violate any of our
Okay.
own.
Right,
Okay.
that's fine.
So I think, Mayor and Council, if I may respond. Normally, yes, your procedure is when you have a new business item or something that you would like to present, you put it on as a new discussion item and it's discussed and you vote on it or you give direction and then we bring something back. For something like this, I think that you can do as Vice Chair Gilbert suggested. That's another alternative, especially in light of the urgency. I understand. I'm not sure when exactly the TPO is meeting to discuss this item, but I think that having that expression of the council that the city is opposed to this project is what the Vice Chair is suggesting is all the TPO would need. And having that in the minutes would be sufficient. So,
We don't have
Through
to
the chair.
wait, and we don't have to wait for a future meeting to vote, for you to prepare the resolution and to vote on it.
I think the idea would be to just make a motion this evening to oppose the project. So I don't know if Councilwoman Bravo would want to just restate it as making a motion to oppose the project and, convey that to the TPO and any other governmental agencies that are involved in the project. So it's sort of a slight rewording of her motion. Instead of requesting a resolution, it would just be a motion expressing the city council's opposition to the pedestrian bridge and requesting that all governmental agencies involved in the project indefinitely end the proposed project. And I think that that's probably what the TPO, from what I'm hearing from the vice chair, Gilbert, and chair of the TPO, Commissioner Gilbert, I think that's what I'm hearing from him, that's sufficient for them. That would be sufficient for us. You don't need a full-blown resolution to effectuate that. A motion would be fine.
Effective today, our vote, Heidi, would be effective tonight instead of waiting for a
Correct.
resolution that has to be drafted and presented at a future meeting.
That's
Through the
correct.
chair.
Mayor.
Do you want to amend your,
Motion to move on the vote.
do you want to amend your resolution?
So I would, just
Change it.
restate it.
That
If you'd like, you can restate it how I just said it, and
Okay.
I
Now,
think.
again, and Councilwoman Bravo, hold on,
Mhm.
and I think what you need to do is restate your
Restate what I
motion,
said.
so, right, so that we're all in agreement, and that's it.
I'm just,
But one other thing, okay, go ahead.
no, I'm just gonna suggest
have a
the word
discussion.
rescind.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
just
We rescinded it.
Now, again,
just to
we-
use the word
okay,
rescind.
so let's hold that, and in the meantime, we need to have public comment before we take
Yes,
a vote.
please.
It's our responsibility to hear from the public, whether you agree with this or not. We need to hear from the public before we take a vote.
Absolutely.
So that said, even if you've signed up to speak and you feel that you no longer need to speak, that you're in agreement with what we've discussed here, with what we've heard, you don't have to speak. I'm not discouraging you from it, but I'm just letting you know that that's the opportunity. We'll institute 2-minute time limit. Again, like I said, when you hear the timer go off, please don't make me say your time is up. Just be respectful that the time is up, and you will say thank you and give the courtesy to the next person following you. And right now, we'll open it up for public comment on the 2 items then, if you want to speak on the rapid transit zone or on the pedestrian bridge. So I will call you up in the order that has been signed up here. Okay, and Erica, we have the timer ready to go.
Heidi's gonna be proposing.
No,
for
thank
me.
you for asking. 2 minutes total. Everyone that speaks has 2 minutes total to say what you'd like. And also, I'm going to ask, and I know I can expect this, and I think the rest of the council can expect this from our residents, civility. I expect you to be respectful. You may be angry, hopefully not as angry as you were when you got here, and hopefully not as upset as you were, but you may be emotional, but still, we expect decorum here. We expect to be able to discuss things with respect for each other. For ultimately, all of us that are gathered here have one goal. You're here tonight, and all of us are here tonight because we want the best for Miami Springs, for our community, for our quality of life. And we might have different opinions of what the best quality of life issues are. What are the major ones, whether it's traffic, whether it's taxes, whether it's police protection, but we all have that one common goal. And I think we need to respect each other for that and realize, I think we all know that. So again, I'm asking everyone to, plus if you start yelling at us, we can't hear what you're saying because, we're like this. So your comments kind of get lost. All right, so let's get started with that. Erica, you have the timer ready?
Yes, I do.
And the first speaker on here is Genus Leonard. Is that correct?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councils and commissioner. Been living in Miami Springs for 30 years. This is my first time speaking in front of the council. And moved to Miami Springs because I wanted to raise a family in a safe manner, have neighbors, be able to build our careers. And I am very happy that that you have taken control of the city and that you have refused, however intention Mayor Gilbert was, the county taking over what the city does. I voted for you, for some of you, not all of you, I voted for you because I expect you to be accountable. And I like you to be accountable. I, of course, live in the county, I pay county taxes, and I recognize that the county has a role. But I think you have done the right thing in both cases, in the rapid transit case and in the bridge case. As a county resident, I don't understand the rapid transit ordinance because I understand people need to get to work. But I think the last thing you do, the rapid transit has never had the riders that they need, the target riders. If you don't have the target riders, what you do, because people don't live near that, is you move and build another station. You don't uproot neighborhoods and create new high density zones in the neighborhoods that are not using the transit that much. And with that, that's all I have. Good job on the
Thank
whole.
you very
Very
much.
glad you did that.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, the next speaker is Frank Benitez. And I'm going to announce the next speaker so you could be getting ready is going to be Charlie Leonard.
Okay. Good afternoon, councilmen and council persons. Thank you very much. And Mayor Mitchell, thank you very much. I know it was not an easy job. Thank you for your patience and consideration, and all of you for your support in this matter, whether you were going for the bridge or in opposition of it. I know it was not easy where you sit, and I thank you for your time and your devotion for everything that you do and your understanding. With that also, Vice Chair Gilbert, thank you very much also for your decision and cooperation. I will say my newborn son also thanks you, that he looks forward to building fond memories in a community that we call home. So thank you very much for that. With that, I wanted to say a few things with that on both points. One, with now that the bridge is not in play, I do want to call attention to our green spaces and how can we preserve those. So maybe that was an opportunity to talk in the general forum, but I thought it's an opportunity to bring that here in discussion. We do see quite a bit of erosion into our parks and Crane Ave and our walk spaces from transient traffic that's coming through, people parking there, littering, also doing other activities late at night, which are not desirable in this neighborhood. So I do want to bring attention to that matter. Another thing also, I do want to also go back to the transportation Metro Rail as a user many years in my life, growing up in high school, going to LaSalle, South Miami, and living in Kendall, taking 2 buses, Daytron Center, and then going and walking from the Vizcaya to LaSalle. I did enjoy riding on it. I do see that there's an opportunity. I do believe there is an opportunity for our city as a whole to grow and allow for more transportation. So I look forward to that. I do have a question.
Thank you.
Though.
Sorry, your timer's up.
Oh.
Maybe you didn't hear it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Charlie Leonard, please. And let me make a comment with the public forum. The intent of public forum is for you to address all of us at one time. And the comment, we do not engage in responses in the public forum. It's literally a one-way conversation. You let us know what's on your mind. We hear it. And if you need further assistance on it afterwards, after the meeting or later this week, you reach out to our city staff or to any of us and we can discuss it in detail. Okay. All right, Charlie, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Vice Chairman, for your presentation. But one word that I heard tonight that kind of resonates with me was uncertainties. And you mentioned that you don't want uncertainties, that once the city does this or that, for your plan, you need to be certain that nothing's going to change. So I would feel much better because I talk to hundreds of people all the time and everyone is against the bridge that I've talked to. Maybe a few were okay with it. And everybody's against the rapid transit zoning because that's their big concern. So I still, despite all the discussion, I still feel uncertainties. So I would feel much better if there was a resolution at some point rescinding the project, the bridge, not postponing it indefinitely. Postpone is not a word I like. It's dead and that's it. And the other thing is, I would like that ordinance, whenever it's presented, that the county will not interfere at any point with Miami Springs zoning jurisdiction. So we control our future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Chuck Postel. And after that, we have Kathy Doyle, just to be ready.
I had a whole bunch of stuff to say, but I'm not going to say it. I will say this, though, and I do want to say this, that many years ago, we had people come out here from the downtown and connection with the prison. And we were promised there was never going to be any prisoners that were released on the street. They promised that.
Excuse me,
To this day,
Mr. Postel's talking.
we have daily people released, not just daily, 3 times a day. So we need to be very careful about what we're told and what we're promised. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. And after, this is Kathy Doyle, and after that, we have John Doyle. I'm just kind of letting the person know so that they can get ready to come.
Thank you, council members, for your decision today. I want to reiterate the need for our vote tonight that would completely rescind the bridge. All right, I was going to talk a couple of times about some of the problems in our northwest corner of Springs, but I'll reserve that for letters to all of you at another time. Just want to say that we've devoted a good portion of our lives to this community. I've taught here for 36 years. John has spent 40 years in the school system. We lived here since 1980. We have young neighbors who have young children and babies, okay? And they're our future in Miami Springs. On behalf of all of us and on behalf of the 580 residents who signed the change.org petition as of 7 p.m., we're grateful now, as I was asking you to pass a motion tonight. So we're on behalf of all those people, thank you for taking this into consideration, because I think the greater good, we're not opposed to mass transit, but there's places where it works. And for our little corner of Springs that has all the abuse of all the traffic and the train pileups and the noise and the honking of horns because people are impatient and the squealing of the wheels of the train and the automatic, whatever those new signals, you know, whatever. It's a nuisance. It's a nightmare. Thank God that you've let me stay in my house and get some sleep tonight. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Kathy.
Kathy.
All right, John Doyle, and after that, we will have Mikey Gavilla.
Real quickly,
say.
I will not go through all these notes that you saved yourself from. I'd like to thank you for this evening. As a former history teacher and civics teacher, and as a supervisor and director for all of social studies education for the district, I am so proud to be here tonight to see that we the people actually mean something. Thank you very much. I would only like to suggest one thing, and I loved your proposal, whatever we're going to call it, resolution, proposal, board item, what have you.
Resolution.
I would hope that we would use the word rescind, never use the word postpone, because we don't need this. We don't see any need for it. We don't have anything other than anecdotal evidence that anybody would have ever even used it. Please change it so that it goes away for the rest of my life, considering I live in the closest house to the site that is defined by this proposal. Thank you all so much for bringing back. Democracy's messy, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Thank you,
But-
Council.
But it works.
After Mikey, we have Marsha Braun.
Mikey Gavilla at 684 Morningside Drive. I'm against the bridge. I'm also against both projects, but I'm breathing now. But let's just end it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mikey.
Okay, and let's see, after Marsha is Caridad Amores.
Let's all breathe. I know we all are. I came because I wanted to support my friends who were going to be so impacted by the bridge. I had questions, not many, but I don't need to ask them now. I had seen it as like a solution in search of a problem. And then once I heard about the rapid transit, I thought, aha, there's the collusion, there's the reason. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I'm not. But I want to say, as John just said, I'm so proud of this community, how we came together. We always come together. I wore my shirt this time, listen. I didn't know if I should wear Facts Matter or Truth Matters, but I decided on listen. And that is what we had done. You all listen to us, and we all of my fellow citizens, listens to all of you. And to me, that communication is really what community is all about.
Yep.
We have a fine, fine community here. I've been here for 48 years, this girl from Kansas. I love it, and I will never leave it, but thank you for making it this wonderful community and preserving it forever. Bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Marsha.
Okay, Caridad, and after Caridad, we have Victor Anchiposki.
Good evening. I'd like to thank you all. I think you did a wonderful job, and I had never come to a council meeting before, and I'm very relieved that I did. I live in the bird section. My oak trees also thank you. There's 6 of them on my property that are probably older than me. But with that said, I don't want any of us to fall into a false sense of security. We need to take our fight to the county to make sure that the county never passes any ordinance where they preempt us and where they affect our zoning laws and keep us from being able to do what in our community, what we came here to do and why we live here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Victor, and then after that will be Maria Mikulskas.
Hi there.
Hello.
I'm Victor Anchiposki. I live at 115 South Royal Poinciana Boulevard, and I've been living in Miami Springs for the better part of 60 years. Okay? I've seen this place. I love this place. I love Miami Springs. And recently I was thinking about selling my house because of all of this nonsense. And it's nothing but nonsense. Okay? All I'm going to tell you is this, because I've been around for a long time, I have historical perspective. This gentleman previously was talking about the TGK. Before there was the TGK, it was the Dade County Stockade. And when they tore down the Dade County Stockade and built the TGK, they promised us that there were not going to be any felons in there. And what did they do? They fill it up with felons, and then they tear down the main jail. And that became the main jail after they told us that we're not going to do it. Okay? The worst things that you can hear is, I'm from the county and I'm here to help you. Okay? In the words of Ronald Reagan, trust but verify. Stay after these people and make sure they don't renege.
Okay. Maria, and then after that, Joseph Prudham.
Hi, council, and hi, mayor. Thank you so much. You know how relieved I am about this pedestrian bridge. Jackie, thank you so much for responding to all my emails. You're the only one, and for your resolution tonight. I really do thank you. I thank you all for everything that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
pardon me, that person left? Okay, Max, Max Losner, who is from, did you want to speak now, Matt? You'll wait till we have it on the, okay, on the agenda. Okay, let's see, Joe Galleno. And then after that, we have Eduardo Amen.
I'm just gonna, I'll start. I'm not gonna thank everybody because there's been thanks enough. I poured over 160 pages of documents. That's what I do when something comes up. I'm gonna read something very clear. The purpose of this ordinance, as currently written, was to give authority to the central metropolitan government to maintain greater regulation and control over the development of the project, which you reiterate tonight. This means jurisdiction is vested completely to Miami-Dade County, regardless of any municipal codes, all zoning approval, historic preservation, issuance of building permits, building inspections, issuance of certificates of occupancy, subdivision approval, and any other types of planning, zoning, subdivision, building functions within the designated areas of the corridor. I'm going to say this very briefly. Promises are exactly what they are, promises. It's not affirmation. It's not concrete. I would urge this council and all councils coming after it, okay, to not let this die, to pursue this to fruition, to where this city maintains the level that we have established for decades. That's all I have to say. You said something very, very much earlier. New York City. I love New York City. But you know very well that there's places in New York that don't conform. The Branchbrook Park Station does not look like the one in central Manhattan. And this is not New York City. This is a unique, non-cookie cutter location, which is onto itself. And that's all I have to say. And thank you. once
Thank
again.
you.
Thank you, Joey.
Okay, this is Eduardo
Yeah, Eduardo.
Amen. Okay, and after that, we have Osvaldo Abello.
Okay. Just want to say thank you for your time. It's my first time in a council meeting. And I was here because my neighbor, my friend, told me to come over to, speak on this bridge proposal. And I agree with Mr. Vasquez. We should just, cancel it and not postpone it because we want an agreement that we don't want it. So, just in short, I think we should just cancel it and not proceed with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Osvaldo, and then we have Luis Gomez.
Good evening, Council. Osvaldo Arbello from 1190 Starling. I encourage you to pass a vote tonight to cancel this project indefinitely. I completely object to this project. Also, in regards to the transit area, while we are excluding the Birch section, which I live in, there's unincorporated metro areas right outside of our block, 500 yards from my house. And as Mayor Mitchell knows, I've been fighting other issues in that area regarding train noise, LNG plant noise, and everything else. So I encourage you to stay vigilant on those unincorporated areas that border the Birch section, because just by them saying remove the Birch section doesn't mean it's not going to affect the Birch section. So please stay vigilant and vote no for this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good point. Okay, we have Luis Gomez. Is he here? Barbara Chavez. Okay, and after Ms. Chavez, we have Pamela Canary.
Thank you. I just want to say, I'm not in the bird section, but I am part. I've been living in Miami Springs for 23 years. And to see something like this happen in this city is detrimental. It'll set us up for disaster, I believe. And I am completely against it. And I would like to see the word rescind in the proposal, in the motion tonight. I would like that to happen tonight. So with that said, that's basically it. Thank you for what you're doing and listening to our concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pamela Canary, and then after that, we have Susan Hempstead.
Good
Good evening, Mayor, Council people.
Good
My
evening.
name is Pamela Carneri, 1271 Quail Avenue, Bird Section. So yes, I was taken aback by all this. Pedestrian bridge as well as the building of extras. I just want to say thank you very much for listening to the people who put you here because us Miami Springs residents care about our city. We live here and we love our city. And we hope that we want to communicate clearly with all of you how we really feel. And as you can see by the outcome of everybody, we have expressed our thoughts. So thank you for listening. And I do really hope that when you do pass and vote, that that word is included. Thank you.
Thank you.
Emma. Is Susan Hempstead here? Okay, Bob Rayon, and after that we have, I think it's Eduardo. I can't read the handwriting. Possibly, okay, it's with an E and then Gonzalez after.
Bob Rayon, Plover Avenue.
So,
Good evening. I left New York City 50 years ago. Quality of life was almost impossible. I believe that this country suffers from personal responsibility. So when I hear all these conversations about they can't get this and do that and they can't get from here to there, let me tell you, I traveled 2 hours from my home in Flushing to Power Memorial Academy to get a good education and back 2 hours. Now, I was 12 years old, and my parents said to me, Bobby, after you go to track, see if you can get back by 9 o'clock tonight. I had left at 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, I had thousands of friends. And I knew of people specifically in Brooklyn, the Bronx, Staten Island, on and on and on. They were going to schools all over the place and they made it. And they worked in the winter, they shoveled snow. I delivered mail in the winter with snow up to my knees. So I know about personal responsibility, but I am so sick and tired that, oh, well, the poor people, this and that, and blah, 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 on, and they need this and that. Well, listen, wake up, America, get some personal responsibility and figure it out. You know, people figure out how do you go from Miami Springs to Dade College in Kendall? Well, there's no public transportation. There is no public, you said it, right? Figure it out,
That's
Well,
why I drive.
this is like, this is life. So my time is up. Let me tell you something.
Sir,
I'm
sorry.
No, I'm not finished. I sat downstairs and dozens of people were turned away. I recommend you have another meeting and have the people that are serious about speaking.
Thank you, sir.
Have
All
the
right.
opportunity.
The next
No,
speaker,
don't touch.
the next speaker is Egiando Gonzalez, Miami Springs Avenue. No, or is that?
No, close enough. It's Guido
Oh,
Gonzalez.
Guido, I'm sorry, I couldn't read
No,
your
that's fine.
handwriting.
That's fine.
Thank you. And after that, we have Jim Lelowin. Lelowin.
Good evening to all, and thank you to the council and to folks from Dade County.
So you have to speak close to the mic, please.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
As far as the folks from Dade County, I'm sure you heard us from Dade County in downtown. But I personally thank you for coming out here and listening to us. And it's evident that you have, and we thank you for that.
Get closer to the microphone, sir, so they can't hear you in the back.
Let me
Thank you.
take this off. The one thing that, quite frankly, I don't want to beat a dead bridge, but I did want to, I did want to focus on one thing. The councils and some members of the council have mentioned that this bridge is dead because the timing is off. And I think that misses the mark. This is not about a timing issue. It's about the substance. And I think it's rather clear that we're not in agreement. It doesn't behoove the stakeholders that we're talking about here, and those are the residents of Miami Springs. So just food for thought. This is not about timing. It's about the substance, and the substance is that this is not something that benefits the stakeholders of Miami Springs. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Jim, is Jim here? And then after Jim, we have, hold on one second. These are really faint. Francis Fernandez.
Francisco, I think it is.
Is it Francisco? Sorry, it's the handwriting. All right, Jim.
Jim Llewellyn, 81 Carlisle Drive. First, I do want to say thank you to the council for, and by extension, the county for listening to the will of the people. But I did send you guys a letter, and I think it's still, for the sake of transparency and trust building, I'm going to read it to the record anyway. Dear Mayor, Council, and City Manager, as the Miami Springs community reacts in disgust and anger over the revelation of the rapid transit activity zone, the most catastrophic threat to Miami Springs in its almost 100-year existence, I first and foremost want to document my own extreme opposition to the plan. I also have a specific question that I strongly feel the residents deserve an answer to. As I have said elsewhere about the subject, I'm in no way, shape, or form alleging any Miami Springs officials have engaged in any subterfuge or wrongdoing related to this matter. My focus at this point is on awareness. I respectfully ask for each member of the council and the city manager to clearly and publicly answer on the record tonight, the August 9th council meeting, the following question. When exactly did you first become aware of the rapid transit activity zone and its plan for our Miami Springs community? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Francisco Fernandez.
Good evening. This isn't my first rodeo. I was one of the first ones that came up here. And unfortunately, there was a big cloud of doubt of what I was saying. They were questioning my integrity. 132 people signed my petition, but they were all referenced as close friends. Pressure, they signed because I was a neighbor. When I said that people didn't know about it, no, this was discussed. I spoke to over 100 people, and if 5 people knew about this project, it was too many. But my integrity was questioned. Now the people have spoken. These are not all my friends, they're my community. And I resent the fact when people come up here because they're bringing attention to this board here to make decisions that are best interest, that those citizens are questioned and ridiculed. Facts speak for themselves. The people have spoken. They're here. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nora Ruby. And after that, we have Maylee Elfman. Nora. Okay, maybe. Maylee. Okay, and
Vincent's here. If you wanna
Vincent.
Take him first. While they
Okay,
make their way
Vincent
up.
Medell, and then if Nora or Maylee are downstairs and they want to come up, please do so.
Good evening. My name is Vincent Medell. I want to congratulate Bob Best for the great presentation and eloquent information you sent us. Thank you very much. I can't add anything to that. It was really good. Regarding, I'm against the bridge and the massive transportation. And Basket said it very good. He used it over there in New York, but it's not applicable here in Miami Springs. So let's not batch it to fit because of somebody in Dade County thinks it's a good idea. But it's not a good idea here in Miami Springs. And I appreciate the time for you all taking care of this and just make it, just don't pass it at all and be firm about it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more person on to speak at open forum, and that is Jim Blowen, sorry. Are you here, sir? Okay.
Good evening, everybody, council. Last time I spoke here was in 2004. It's been a long time. Back then, I was a firm believer of less federal intrusion and more states' rights, local, city rights like that. But in 2004, I moved to Alabama for a job. And I found out really what that meant. That meant that the states, the city, and the counties wanted to violate your constitutional rights and get away with it, like the state of Alabama does, and a lot of cities and counties do there. Well, there is one agenda. Oh, and as far as the walkover bridge, I live 50 yards from the high school walkover bridge, and I understand why that is there. But come the end of this month, I got to go down to the courthouse because somebody came over, walked over the bridge, stole a bicycle, broke into my neighbor's yard, broke into my yard, and one of my dogs chased him up the roof. So, and luckily it
still there?
wasn't one of my other dogs because he would have followed him up the ladder and chased him off the roof. But, I want to read something. The right of the people to be secure in persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath and affirmation. Well, your violation of the Fourth Amendment that, and I've spoke to this to Mr. Leonard, one of the realtors here, and several other realtors, by coming in my house when I want to sell it and doing an inspection for an illegal efficiency. Well, you know what? That ain't going to happen. That's a violation of the Fourth Amendment. City official, government official coming in to look at something illegal on private property.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, that ends our public forum. The few names that I called that I assume that they've left because they haven't come up if they were downstairs. So let's go back now and revisit and I believe, and we're still in the discussion phase, but I believe that from what, and again, anyone can make any motion they want, but from my understanding from what our city attorney suggested is that we just take a vote to say that we're against the project instead of waiting for a resolution. This is more timely. It goes, it's already in our minutes, and we're voting that to rescind
I have the new.
resolution
through the chair.
or
Mayor,
Heidi, yes. Did you
I
want to
just-
add something before?
I know that Councilwoman Bravo has a revised motion to share with you all. I just wanted to clarify that as far as rescinding the resolution, which I understand was Councilman Vasquez's request, that is something that I think we should bring back as far as the resolution to rescind, but I'll let Councilwoman Bravo make her motion.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Ready?
Please go ahead.
Motion to express the city council's opposition to the Smart Trail Connector, also known as the Pedestrian Bridge project, request that all government agencies involved in the project indefinitely and the proposed project that the city attorney draft a resolution rescinding city resolution number 2019-3841 to be brought forth at the next council meeting, and that the draft minutes from this evening's meeting be immediately transmitted to the county, the TPO, FDOT, and any other government agencies involved in the project to inform these agencies of the city's new position of this project.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just to clarify that you did withdraw your original motion, right, Councilwoman?
You didn't.
Yes, that's what he said.
Yes, before you revised it, you withdrew your
Correct,
Need
making
that
this
on the record.
effective.
Yes.
Councilman, Vice Mayor Best, were you going to say something?
No, I think the attorney just answered it. I was going to say, I don't understand why we can't in voting on this this evening, go ahead and at the same time effectively rescind 2019-3841. I don't understand why we can't do that. Why does it have to come back? Why
We
can't it
should
just
have,
go away right now?
you can definitely express that intent, but as far as the resolution, we really should have a clear record rescinding it.
But in fact, Counselor, what you're doing is you are rescinding it, but it's still there.
The motion as expressed was not rescinding the resolution this evening. It's directing me to draft a resolution rescinding it, which
Through the
frankly
chair.
should be the proper method of doing it. You have a resolution in writing. The appropriate way of rescinding the resolution would be to do so in writing.
Through the chair,
by the resolution.
I'd like to amend the last resolution I read to vote this evening.
Second.
I'm not sure what the vote
Pres-
is
Yeah, council,
on what the.
respectfully,
Alderman
as
Bravo
far
need to speak along.
procedurally,
You gave a quick one, so we need to clarify what we're talking about, first of all, if there's a motion on, we're in the process of a motion. Sorry, excuse me. We're in the process of a motion made by Councilwoman Bravo, was seconded by Councilman Fahet, and we're in discussion of that. Okay, so unless you want to amend your motion, we need to take a vote on that
You just did, right?
motion,
So-
correct? Heidi?
You just added.
I don't know, sorry, I didn't hear what Councilwoman Bravo wanted to do. What I wanted to just make sure that the council is clear is you can express your intent to rescind the resolution, but you should have a follow-up resolution rescinding the prior resolution. So that's why Councilwoman Bravo's motion is to direct my office to prepare that resolution rescinding the 2019 reso. So everything else is still the same as what your intent is still there. The TPO will still be advised through the minutes from tonight's meeting that the city is opposed to this project, that the city is requesting that the project be indefinitely terminated. We're not using the word postponed, specifically not using the word postponed, which I heard many members of the public mention. So it's just procedurally, we should have a resolution, and I can't give you that resolution tonight. It's not drafted, but it would be effectively the title of the resolution would be a resolution rescinding resolution 2019-3841, which is the resolution that requested funding for this project.
Okay, so are we voting on, you made a resolution first, and you read several things that I'm
The
guessing you
verbiage
and the
that was
city
added.
attorney had agreed on. Are we voting on that resolution, or you made a second resolution afterwards? If so, you need to rescind.
There's no resolution on the table.
Okay.
There's a motion on the table that Councilwoman Bravo withdrew her original motion from prior to public comments. And she's made a motion to express the city council's opposition to this project, the Pedestrian Bridge project. She's also requesting that all government agencies involved in the project indefinitely end the project, that my office be directed to draft a resolution rescinding resolution 2019-3841 to be brought back at the next council meeting, and that the draft minutes, and specifically it's draft minutes because you won't be approving them until your next meeting. So the draft minutes from this evening's meeting be immediately transmitted to the county, FDOT, the TPO, and any other agencies that are involved in the project, so that those agencies can actually be informed of the city's opposition to this project.
Is that your resolution, Councilwoman Bravo?
Your motion.
That is my motion, but I wanted to also ask Heidi a question. We typically go through 2 readings. Can we eliminate it to the next meeting on vote?
Then we eliminate.
We do 2 readings for ordinances. This would be a resolution.
Okay,
So
sorry.
Your motion tonight is just one motion, one vote. You can vote tonight, your vote is good tonight, and then at the next meeting, you'll have a resolution rescinding resolution 2019-3841. And it's just one meeting, one vote, that's it.
But just to be clear, Heidi, what the TPO needs is the minutes from today's meeting. So in effect.
Correct, and that's part of the motion that.
Right,
the-
they don't need the resolution when it pass in 2 weeks.
Correct.
Internal purpose.
Yes.
By what, yes, sir. Please. You're here, you're hearing us. Yes. Right. Thank you. A resolution has to be drafted and then presented at the next meeting and voted
But
on.
let's
and-
take this
and
vote.
Yes.
Let's
Okay.
take this vote.
Call a vote, Mayor.
Okay.
All right. Yes, sir. Pardon me?
Yeah.
Yes. Is there any more discussion? Okay. So, take the vote, please, Erica.
Vice Mayor Best,
Aye.
Councilwoman Bravo,
Yes.
Councilman Fahet,
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez, Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you. I encourage all of you who, are relaxed to, I know you've been very worked up for a while, so, have a good night's rest tonight. I hope you do. All right, so Vice Chair, thank you.
Thank
Could we
you.
take, before
Thank
you
you.
leave, could we take a quick meeting? We're so honored to have
A
you.
picture?
And, yes, I'm sorry, what did I say?
Meeting picture, photo.
And with Mr. Boucher and also with Tomas. Yeah, the Indians.
West side. I caught this guy. 218.
Uh-huh.
I caught this guy dumping the
Oh, wow. Uh-huh.
See what the mayor. We have to.
No, I didn't. Can we get another picture real quick from the city? Thank you. I'm gonna send you a text.
Y'all are as receptive as always to that.
B and C.
Just wanted to confirm. I'm glad that they were here.
Oh, yeah?
Because it was just you.
Well, I'll tell you something. It's
Your fingers are always on the pulse.
Have you ever seen anything like it, dude? Yeah, he did. He did.
Okay, so now. The mayor,
To talk.
you would,
We got a council meeting to have now.
Eric,
dude.
Ms.
We haven't
Gonzalez.
even started. We haven't even approved the minutes from last meeting.
Yes, she's the one that makes everybody's appointments for.
Mayor and council, we can hear you, especially those of you who are in the back of the room. We can hear you on
William.
the live stream.
William,
Thank you, sir.
William, it didn't break.
Absolutely.
It didn't break. We only were supposed to be taking photos.
Oh, okay. With the mask and, oh.
I don't believe.
To the mayor, give me your information right here.
We didn't take
Grabs, oh, of course.
I can sleep tonight. Huh? I can sleep tonight too. You too.
All right. We're back. We need to approve the minutes from last meeting, the July 22nd meeting that we haven't done. So let's go ahead. Oh, sorry, Councilman, wait 1 second.
And Mayor, while you're reconvening, just remember that we do need to do open forum on the rest of the agenda as well.
I did, Heidi, the last name on open forum was Jim Blowlin. Blowen, sorry, I will get it right one day. I'm so sorry.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, and maybe I
have nothing else on the open forum. And he spoke regarding the, what is it, building inspection occupancy. We got it. I just wanted to make sure I've gotten
Perfect.
everything on
Okay.
the open forum. Okay, so let's, I'll accept a motion to accept the minutes from the July 22nd meeting.
Through the chair, a motion to move item 6A.
Second,
Second.
call the vote.
Vice Mayor Best.
Aye.
Councilwoman Bravo.
Yes.
Councilman Fahet.
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez. Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. All right, going right along with here, let's see where we are.
8A, Mayor, if I missed.
Yes, okay.
8.
I'm just saying if there's anything else we need to move forward. Okay.
Do we do,
We could do
the
Max.
Becker?
Becker with Max. Yes, let's do that one. If the council is willing, we will move. Which one is that one?
That's 11A.
11A?
Okay, 11A, let's move 11A. Max
And
has been
Mayor,
patiently here.
it's very difficult to hear you, so maybe if you feel comfortable enough to take off your mask now when you're speaking.
Sorry.
That's what I just
Better? Yes.
Is it just that I'm too close to the microphone, maybe?
I don't think it was you that you were close enough, so.
Okay,
but
I'm
yes,
sorry. Let me try to get closer because I really don't want to take off the mask since we have
That's fine.
our ordinance or our requirement right now is that we wear masks
That's
inside
fine.
public buildings.
11A, Mayor, is a resolution of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Miami Springs, Florida, approving a one-year extension to the professional services agreement with Becca Polycroft, PA, for consulting and lobbying services in an amount not to exceed $45,000, providing for authorization, providing for an effective date.
Okay, and Max is here representing, I believe Jose is ill right now. Max
correct,
is
Mayor.
one of our lobbyists.
Oh, can you hear me? Is this
Yes.
on? Okay.
You take your mask off.
Great. Well, unfortunately or fortunately, my item's not as exciting as the rapid transit zone or the footbridge, but nevertheless, Max Losner, representing Becker Polyakoff, 121 Alhambra Plaza, Coral Gables. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council, Mr. Manager, Madam Attorney. Unfortunately, my colleague, Mr. Fuentes, couldn't be here this evening. He's feeling under the weather, but we just wanted to state on the record what a pleasure it is to work with your council and staff this past legislative session in conjunction with Senator Diaz and Speaker Pro Temp Avila in bringing back over $2.7 million for critical projects like the East Drive Stormwater Project, the South Royal Poinciana Median, which I understand you'll be approving work orders for later this evening. It's been a pleasure to work with your staff. And of course, Mr. Fuentes would be remiss if I didn't mention that his daughter is a proud resident of the city of Miami Springs. And we really enjoy working with your city. And if you have any questions, we look forward to your favorable support.
Certainly no questions, Max, but I can tell you this. I believe I'm on record as a year ago, maybe two, of potentially not funding the lobbyist. And I can tell you, after I reconsidered that and came back and did give you my support eventually, you guys have been off the charts to all members as far as advising us throughout the legislative sessions what was going on week after week after week after week. And I thank you intensely for that. And I intend to fully support you again tonight.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
And I would say I totally agree with what the Vice Mayor has said. And I've said this before. When I first was elected to council, I just didn't understand why we had to pay lobbyists to do our work to communicate with elected officials at the state and county. And I've realized the services that you provide, none of us have the time to be constantly on top of these legislative issues or the knowledge, the expertise as they, you and Jose and Alex and the rest of the firm have done exceptional work for us in representing us and in giving us by far, appropriations at the state level that would have just been buried under all the other appropriations that are requested from other municipalities throughout the state. And you just keep bringing up to the forefront. And this year, by far, we've had several approved major ones that we were working on for 4 years, requesting them. So we greatly appreciate it. And the other part is the expertise that whenever there's any kind of issue going on at the county, at the state or federal level, that we've called you and you guys just happen to know it all. You know what the status is, what the strategic best move would be for our city and the best interest of our city. And that kind of guidance and expertise is greatly valued.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
11A.
All right, call the vote.
Vice Mayor
Any
Beth?
discussion? Sorry. Any further discussion?
Not from
All right,
my
call the
end.
vote, please.
Vice Mayor Beth?
Aye.
Councilwoman Bravo?
Yes.
Councilman Behet?
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez?
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell?
Yes,
The motion carries.
thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Max.
Thanks, Max.
Okay, do we have someone here from the architectural group representing the projects?
Well, we still need 8A, Mayor.
Hmm?
8A, we still need to.
The
Yes.
ordinance on second reading.
No, but I'm saying that we would move that one up too if we have anyone else waiting
Oh.
to speak. But no, okay. I mean, because we've been holding them up patiently for so long. Okay, so let's do ordinance 8A, the second reading of the nuisance abatement board.
It's an ordinance of the city of Miami Springs, Florida, amending chapter 32 of the city's code of ordinances by creating Article 17 nuisance abatement board, authorizing the creation of an administrative board with the authority to impose fines and other non-criminal penalties to abate certain activities declared public nuisances pursuant to section 893.138 Florida statutes, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date. Mayor and council, this ordinance was considered by you at the June 28th council meeting, at which time the council directed us to make some slight revisions to the ordinance, which are set forth in double underline and double strike through. There are minimal revisions, which were simply to allow, instead of only having the code enforcement board serve as the nuisance abatement board, at your direction, we created an alternative, which was your preference that the council appoint a 5-member board to serve as the nuisance abatement board. So that's the crux of the change between first and second reading. I'm happy to go into that a little further or address any other questions that you may have, but I think that we spent a lot of time discussing this ordinance on first reading, so I'm happy to answer any questions. My partner, Jose Arango, is also on Zoom to answer any questions you may have. If the ordinance is adopted this evening, and understanding what the council's desire was at the last meeting to designate a 5-member board, we would work with the city clerk's office and all of you to appoint a board member to serve on this board. And we would get the business of the board underway as soon as we have our first case.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
I believe it was my understanding that we asked the chief to come up with to use the criteria stated in the ordinance in order to come up with a preliminary list to give to us so that we would know who would fall under officially under nuisance, that we would do that as part of our consideration of passing this ordinance. But I don't see the chief here. I don't know, he may be on. Was that completed?
I think they're working on it. The chief has been, was out last week and this week, through some personal issues with his
Okay.
family, but, I'll check with him tomorrow and see how they're doing on that.
Okay. Is
Is-
there a
is-
motion to?
And just as a reminder, Mayor and Council, this is a public hearing, so we do need to open it up for comment.
All right, let's do that. I don't have anyone listed for public comment on it, Heidi, though.
Okay.
Just need to make sure we open it up and.
Okay, it is open for public comment. Is there anyone, even if you weren't signed up to speak, we will listen to you? Yes, sir? State your name again, if you could state your name again.
James Brown, 531 Raven. I'm a neighbor of one of your friends.
One of your friends.
My friends?
Yeah, she lives right across the street from me. Yvonne,
Yvonne, mm-hmm.
there you go.
Good people.
I'm just wondering, I was curious. I read a little bit about in the Gazette about this board that you want to put together for a nuisance. I spoke with the assistant city manager. She explained a little bit more. It's mostly geared towards Airbnbs. But the problem that I see is it's a kind of like a cast net that anything that the police or a neighbor or anything feels tired of can sick the city and the police on somebody for no undue reason. That I'm concerned with. And I'm also would like to know is if this board can hold the city accountable for being a nuisance. If they're in the realm of this thing, since, because yes, y'all have been a nuisance at times. And from the seeing of how y'all do things, y'all are slow. I understand there's procedural and lawyers and all like that, but seriously, y'all take a lot of time to get nothing done. I mean, and as far as my previous subject, that Fourth Amendment, if your council is allowing you to do that and opening yourself up to litigation, you need to find counsel that knows the Constitution.
All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else want to speak in public forum? All right, is there a motion?
Through the chair,
Yes, sir.
I would like to make the motion on with the discussion item attached.
Okay, so
But-
you're going to make a motion to
Yes,
pass
I will.
it? And then
And I'd
do
like
we- with a
that's
second? Well, if there's a second, then we can discuss it.
Okay, is there a
How's
second?
that? Is there a second? All right,
Okay,
discussion.
for discussion. Heidi, I really appreciated your preparation on this. I know I had some questions on it initially at the last meeting. And my concern is that Councilman Fahet did, as he stated a moment ago, relative to the police department. And of course, he's not here tonight. And if Councilman Fahet would be all right with that going forward, I think it's in good hands. Because what she had to say relative to law enforcement in her preparation for us tonight, I think satisfied me. I don't know if it did you, but if there was anything further.
So, Mayor, actually, my suggestion was actually the genesis of it was from a conversation I had with council because the ordinance basically lists a criteria, and I know that we're not inventing something new out of thin air. I know that this is something that other, and so I'd like to kick it back over to Heidi. But if we're setting criteria, I think that for the purposes of calibrating it, and that's something that I discussed with her, and that's why I brought it up during the meeting. I think that this should wait till the 16th until we can have the discussion that we talked about, which is like, okay, so how would this work once we put it into place? Once we put it into place, it's in place based on the criteria, and I'd like to see how that criteria would look when applied. And I get it. I mean, we can wait till the 16th. It's not a big deal. But the chief said, like, I could tell you off the top of my head. He kind of made it seem like it. So I think that it shouldn't be too hard for him to put it together. And I'd feel more comfortable if we could see how this will look in practice once we approve it before approving it. But Heidi, do you have any comment? Because I know that that's something that came up in our discussion. Since you're setting this ordinance sets a criteria, I'd like to see how that will look in practice once it's approved.
So I think I'm glad you're asking the question, because I can tell based on what the gentleman's remarks were during public comments that there continues to be a grave misunderstanding of what this ordinance actually does. So this ordinance is not intended to, and I've spoken with many of you about this, this is not intended to deal with code enforcement issues that may seem like a nuisance to each of us when our neighbors are perhaps doing things that annoy us. This is not that type of ordinance. This ordinance is strictly based off of state law. The state law sets what the standards are and the types of cases that we can bring before this type of board. So the definition of a public nuisance is set forth in the ordinance. All of the
criteria as well.
All of the examples in the, I'm calling them examples, but all of the criteria, if you want to call them criteria, is that a public nuisance meets one of 7 different criteria. And as you can see, all of those relate to, frankly, criminal activity. So it's prostitution, drug sales, gang-related activity, theft, dealing in stolen property, and other more egregious felony type crimes. So all of those are listed as public nuisances, and that's what this ordinance is intended to address. What the Public Nuisance Abatement Board's jurisdiction and authority would be limited to hearing only those cases that the police department receives a complaint about or initiates themselves. The city on its own can initiate a public nuisance complaint or case. So as far as the process, any resident of the city, any of you, the city itself can initiate a public nuisance complaint. There will be a form to file a complaint. The complaint will be reviewed initially by the police department. The police department will look and see if the complaint falls within any of these 7 criteria of things that may constitute a public nuisance. Once the police department reviews it, if it does rise to the level of a public nuisance, as defined in this code and by state law, the police department will send a notice to the city will send a notice to the property owner and the business or owner of the property, explaining what the nuisance is, that there's been this complaint, and providing a timeline for correction of that public nuisance. If the public nuisance is not corrected within the time frame, then that property owner will be brought before the Public Nuisance Abatement Board. There will be a hearing scheduled, and the Public Nuisance Abatement Board would consider the complaint, would listen to the evidence brought forth by the city. If the property owner or the responding party, whether it's the owner or the tenant or the business operator, they'll listen to that evidence. And then the Public Nuisance Abatement Board will adjudicate and make a decision. This ordinance is I know there was a comment about, the gentleman commented that this was intended to deal with short-term vacation rentals. While this ordinance can address short-term vacation rentals, it can address any private property in the city. So whether that's a commercial property or residential property, it's both. So if you have, for example, one of the criteria is that to constitute a public nuisance is a place that's been used on more than 2 occasions within a 6-month period as the site of the unlawful sale, delivery, manufacture, or cultivation of any controlled substance. Well, we know that sales of controlled substances can occur on commercial properties, for example, hotels, but it can also happen at your neighbor's house down the street. So if there is a public nuisance complaint on a residential property, a commercial property, an industrial property, the type of property doesn't matter. The complaint will be heard and it will be addressed. So once the board listens to the hearing, listens to the evidence, if they agree that there is a public nuisance, they'll enter an order. Fines will be imposed. The property owner will be directed to abate that nuisance, and they will be required to shut down their operations until it's abated. Jose, am I missing anything else of what the reps are discontinuing the nuisance, closing the building until it's corrected? There will be fines. We'll also be recording the board's order to abate the nuisance. That order will constitute a lien against the property, and eventually it's a lien that could become a special assessment type lien against the property, and it would potentially result in foreclosure of the property. So the idea is that this is an ordinance that gives you another tool in your toolbox to be able to abate properties that have continuous problems of a criminal nature. This is not, and I'm going to say it again, this is not intended to deal with a neighbor who has overgrown hedges or overgrown lawns or whose roof is dirty. That's not what this ordinance is about. Those matters will continue to be dealt with through code enforcement. This is strictly things of a criminal nature. And as far as the police department's analysis, I think that that's forthcoming. I suspect that the city will have a series of properties that they may want us to consider filing cases against. And like I mentioned at first reading, this is not for properties that are, I'm sorry, let me start that again. The same way that we handled the hotel on 36th Street last year, and we filed an emergency petition with the court to enjoin that hotel from operating because of them constituting a public nuisance, we can continue to do that type of action as well. This ordinance wouldn't limit our ability to do that. It just gives us another avenue. So I think what I explained last time was for those properties that don't rise to the level of severity that that hotel was at, we would go this route. But that's not to say that we couldn't take a dual track and take a property to the nuisance abatement board and go to court if things are, that terrible as they were in the hotel case last year. So this is, again, another tool.
Mayor, if
Heidi,
you don't,
can I- oh,
I'm sorry, let me just say one thing. Thank you, Heidi, for clarifying again. I want to be clear. I'm in favor of the nuisance abatement board, but it was brought to my attention today that the Miami Herald wrote an article talking about this, where I am quoted saying, in the last 6 months, asking what properties would be, and then apparently a public records request was made by the Miami Herald seeking that list of properties that meet the city's nuisance criteria when unfulfilled, and that it was, and then they have a quote from Erica saying that it was going to come up in this meeting. I do not feel comfortable approving this now. I misspoke. The 16th is a budget workshop. I think that we should wait till the 23rd. I think that because this article, is just inquiring about our process, and I think that we should follow it since we're being quoted in terms of that's what we said we were going to do. And I think we should wait until the 23rd. We should look at how this will look when applied, and then we'll vote on it and move forward then. I don't feel comfortable doing that now.
Through the
without that
chair, if I
information.
might, Mayor. I'm
Just-
inclined to withdraw my motion in deference to Councilman Fahet's concern on this. My only further statement to the counselor is I appreciated her definition of the magistrate and how that entered in what we all read, and that I appreciated because I was a little bit not certain on that.
To be clear, though, the magistrate, and my understanding from talking to council is that the state disallows us using a magistrate to oversee the nuisance abatement, but there is the opportunity to use it over code compliance. And then the thought is that we would use the magistrate over code compliance, and then we could appoint whoever we want, either from that board or whoever we want on the nuisance abatement.
That's exactly right, and that's what I was happy was
Correct.
explained.
Great.
Yeah, so
Thank
I'm
you.
fine to pull my motion on this, and
Okay. All right, and so we don't have a motion.
Mayor?
Yes, sir. Yes, Heidi.
A few things. If you're going to defer the ordinance to the next council meeting, we just do need to state the date certain of that meeting. And that's fine. I would hope that we have the information at that point. I did read that article, Councilman Fahed. I am familiar with what it said. As far as the public records request, I do want it to be clear to council that the reason that that request was not responded to was because at the time, there was no list to provide. So at that time, the police department advised us they were going to create the list. So with public records, we don't create records in response to requests. So I just wanted to make that clear. It wasn't that there was a list and we were withholding it or anything like that. It just, the list at the time of the request did not exist. I'll make sure to speak with the chief to make sure that we have that list for you in time for the agenda for the next meeting if you do decide to defer. And as far as Vice Mayor Best's comments about the magistrate would be for code enforcement, whereas the nuisance abatement board would be a board.
Right, correct. That was differentiated well in your explanation, Counselor. Through the chair, I withdraw my motion in deference to Councilman Fahet, and I would like to engage a motion for the deferral of this item until August the 23rd at our next council meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and I have one question I want to discuss regarding this, Heidi, is just going back to the magistrate. Do we have to, as far as having the code enforcement board switch over and take over these functions, and then we have the magistrate do the, take over these functions, and then the magistrate would do the code enforcement board's functions. Do we need, is that something that, I guess we have to approach the members and make sure that they're willing to, but if they're not, then we just reappoint somebody else to the board, right?
So you have a 7-member code compliance board with 2 alternates. The way that this ordinance for public nuisance board is drafted is a 5-member board. So each of you would have an appointment to that board. While you're certainly able to appoint the members from the code compliance board to this board, you're not limited to doing that. So if you wanted to appoint someone who is not on the board, you absolutely could. I just, as I explained to many of you, my thought process is you have a group of citizens who are very engaged and willing and able to serve their community. So it seems like a good pool of applicants to look at, but as written, the ordinance would provide for 5 members, not 9, which is what you have on code compliance.
Okay. All right.
And sorry, I was trying to think of the second part of your question. My apologies. As far as the magistrate, we would need to engage a magistrate. The city does have a magistrate for red light cameras. And we would, based on the direction we are hearing tonight, we'll speak with that person to see if they would be willing to serve in this capacity as the code compliance magistrate during the budget process. We'll also work with you to budget for that magistrate's expense. And I think, like I mentioned to many of you, the cost of having the magistrate is effectively offset by some of the unseen costs of having the board. So hopefully that addresses those concerns.
This one thing that was not addressed was the relative to the cost factor of the magistrate, which you just kind of spoke to in a way. It would be per event, would it not? I mean, we wouldn't have to engage or put this person on retainer, right?
We would probably have a retainer agreement with them that would provide that, minimum terms, like if they come out for a hearing, they'll probably have, most people who serve in this capacity have a minimum like hourly requirement. So we would work something out with them, but it's not like they would be receiving $1,000 a month, just to throw a number out there. Regardless of whether there's a hearing. It would
In there with the 3 months. Okay, I got you. That's fine.
Okay. Any other discussion?
No,
We
ma'am.
have a motion to defer this to August 23rd.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
And a second. Call the vote.
Vice Mayor Best.
Aye.
Councilwoman Bravo.
Yes.
Councilman Fahet.
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Items 9 and A is, does anyone want to pull out an item, one of these 2 items for discussion?
I'm sorry.
Okay, then I'll accept the motion to vote.
Through the chair, motion to move the consent agenda items 9A and 9B.
Okay.
Second.
All right, call the vote. Oh,
Vice-
sorry,
oh,
discussion.
yeah.
Okay, call the vote.
Vice Mayor Best.
Aye.
Councilwoman Bravo.
Yes.
Councilman Fahet.
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. The next agenda item, we've moving through some of these, is 11B.
B.
This is a resolution of the mayor and city council of the city of Miami Springs, Florida, accepting a state appropriation of $1 million, approving a state-funded grant agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation relating to the South Royal Poinciana roadway improvement project, providing for authorization, providing for an effective date. What you have in front of you is the grant agreement from the state that we need to get signed and get to them so that we can start getting funding for this project.
Madam Chair, motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
None.
All right. And I just want to mention that this is an example of this grant is one of the ones that we got from the state appropriations from
Yes.
having a lobbyist to work with us to pursue this for several years.
Yes.
Call the vote, please.
Correct, Mayor.
Vice Mayor Best.
Aye.
Councilwoman Bravo.
Yes.
Councilman Fahet.
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Next item is 11C.
Yes, this is a resolution of mayor and the city council of the city of Miami Springs, Florida, authorizing the city manager to submit a CBD MIT grant application for funding relating to the Canal Bank Stabilization Project and for providing for an effective date. Would you like me to read the memo?
Yes, please.
I already read it.
You read it?
Hopefully everybody else did too.
This is just a requirement, submitting the grant, they need a resolution from council.
Yes.
And we're requesting, this is what we talked about when,
With the resiliency
we're going
program of
through
the canal
resiliency,
banks.
This is, for the $2 million, that we need for phase 2 and 3 of the canal bank restoration.
Motion to move item 11C, Mayor.
Okay, is there a
Second.
second?
I have a question.
Let's do a second.
I'll
You second it? All right, discussion?
I remember when we discussed the Canal Bank project, and I apologize because my numbers may be off, but I think that we were funded for half of the entire project, correct? Or a
One
quarter.
quarter.
Okay, this grant, and I know that you never know what you ultimately will get, but is there, what percentage of the entire project could we get if this grant is
The
approved?
minimum is
So
a
this
$2
would
million
be,
grant.
so this will complete it if we get it. Is it possible that they give us less than that? Like,
So it's an all or none.
okay, thank you.
And thank you, Tammy and William, for being on top of this, on
Absolutely.
these grant opportunities that,
Absolutely.
you know, they're critical to our city because there's just no way that we can do everything we need to do with our tax base. And, you know, we constantly have to struggle. And my position on the grant money is it's available. If we don't get it, another entity who's also entitled to it will get it. And we're just as entitled to this funding as any other municipality. Okay, so great. Let's call the vote on that.
Vice Mayor Best.
Aye.
Councilwoman Bravo.
Yes.
Councilman Behet.
Yes.
Councilman Vasquez.
Yes.
Mayor Mitchell.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you.
Nice
All
job, administration.
Thank you.
We have the next agenda item is 12, let's see, the
A.
12A, which is I had requested that the city provide an update to the council and to the residents on the actions following the Surfside collapse of the Surfside towers. It happened very suddenly. There was a lot going on in the background continuously, and our city was very involved with a lot of actions related to that. And I thought it was important for everyone to be familiar with what the city was doing.
Let me read the memo into the
Okay.
record. Mayor Mitchell requested that we update council and our residents on actions the city has taken after the Surfside building collapse. On day one, we reached out to our colleagues at Surfside and offered them any assistance they needed from our city. The mayor and I also joined numerous daily Zoom meetings with Mayor Cava's office to get updates and follow up on any requests for assistance. As a matter of fact, our Miami Springs Police Department provided officers to the site to help other agencies on the scene. Additionally, we followed the county's lead in commencing an audit of all city buildings 4 stories and higher to determine if they had complied with the recertifications required beginning at 40 years. On page 1 of your packet, you will see that we had a total of 18 buildings which were 4 stories and higher, and they were all in compliance. We then expanded our audit to include 2 and 3-story buildings. On page 3, you will see that we have 14 properties that are not in compliance. These 14 properties were issued 30-day letters, which you will find a sample of the letter on page 4, in order to comply. If any of these properties do not comply with the 30-day notice, the next step is to bring them in front of the Miami-Dade Unsafe Structures Board for further action. Since the 30-day period ends August 5th, I will provide the council on the updated status of these properties at today's meeting. And I can tell you, out of the 14 properties, we have 4 that have complied, and we have 10 that we are moving to take to the Unsafe Structural Board in the next few days.
Excellent.
And I want to commend our city manager and his staff on this, because if you notice what he said is this is not what was required by the county or even recommended by the county. We took care of that, of evaluating those buildings, and then said we're doing all the commercial buildings in the city. So, and these are ones that would not otherwise be captured, except that we decided to he and his staff, yes,
That's right,
absolutely.
better safe than
So,
sorry.
It's certainly a good follow-up.
it surely is, and going beyond even what's necessary in these cases, and we'll continue. I've spoken with Mayor Levine Cava's office and asked that after this settles down more, that they provide all municipalities with additional. You know, we prepare for what we know can anticipate: hurricanes, terrorist, flooding, and all these things. And then there are these other events that, even though you could say possibly it could occur, we don't prepare for them because you don't expect them to. And the Surfside building collapse has, just like the pandemic, thrown a lot more of potentials on our plate that we need to make sure that our emergency procedures that we're well prepared for, that we understand the consequences, and what's needed in the recovery to quickly address them. So once we get that information, we'll be updating our emergency procedures with any additional data that we need on that. Okay, are there more agenda items?
I think we covered them,
skipped
Mayor.
around so much.
I think if,
You sure?
yeah, we did all that.
Are you sure?
We could do it again. We could do 12B and C again
Let's
if you
do
guys
this.
are up for
If
it.
anyone's agenda item has not been brought up, raise your hand and,
No.
and we'll, you might have more.
I thought you were going to add agenda items.
No. Okay, let's do reports from the city attorney.
Mayor and council, thank you for indulging me in my virtual appearance. I appreciate it. I have no further report this evening.
You look stunning, Counselor.
Thank you.
Okay, city manager.
Just reminding everybody, vaccinations tomorrow at the multipurpose room at the Aquatic Center. Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, they'll be there from 9 to 4. Our plans are for them to be there every Tuesday at the Aquatic Center.
Okay.
If we see more activity, we may get them more days, but for now they're doing, I think in the last 2 times they were here, they were doing on an average about 45 people a day.
That's what you were
It's
saying.
starting
Yeah.
to pick up. So if we need more days, we'll probably get them from them. And remind everybody, if you need to get tested, the Lions Club is great. I went there last week with my wife, and it was in and out in less than 15 minutes. And we got the results, and we're okay. So
So you can
that's
ask
a good
for it.
place.
Yeah.
You don't have to leave the city. Everything's right here.
It's
for you.
nice, man.
Great.
It's nice. It's nice.
William, and I applaud the city's efforts throughout. Keep moving this thing. There we go. Sorry. Applaud your efforts and the city's efforts. I've been able to convince a couple of my daughter's friends to get vaccinated on the threat that they could not come to the house, or at least wear a mask. And so I'm going to make sure that one of them is going there tomorrow. William, in the last couple of days, I've seen a couple of presentations by Dr. Anthony Fauci and others about the possibility, and it's becoming possibly more in the next couple of months, could be boosters for those of us that have been vaccinated and fall within that group of criteria. Yeah, a follow-up to, for anything come down your way about that? Okay, but I know that, so I'm going to be doing it here.
I think they were talking about probably sometime in September, October.
That's true. Yes, it's
certain groups.
Yes.
65 and certain health conditions getting a third booster.
Yeah, well, that's me.
And thank you again for setting that up consistently. We have been really, and that's due to our city manager and staff of consistently getting every week, providing the opportunity for anyone with, what is it, state of Florida ID. Anyone can show up and get vaccinated, promptly vaccinated, and the choice of Pfizer or Johnson & Johnson
Or Maduro?
vaccine.
No, Maduro?
No, I think it's just Pfizer, but
Johnson.
it's still, you got a choice
Yeah,
of
yeah.
2. Okay. Anything else, William?
No, that's it.
Okay. City Council, Vice Mayor?
Well, yeah, I really pay attention to this thing because it's like spiking in Florida right now. I mean, I did hear on NPR, I think it was this morning or quite early, that a 16-year-old was on the ventilator and died. It was either Fort Lauderdale or Palm Beach County.
Yes.
So this is hitting kids young now too, and the thing is no joke. So, and I also heard that the FDA is going to be approving all 3 vaccines, I believe, this week.
Yes.
I think I heard that. So that said, what else did I have to say? I've said enough tonight, I think. I'm fine, Mayor. Thank you. Nice meeting.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bravo?
Well, I just wanted to thank you all for your collaborative efforts. It was impressive seeing all of our residents out here today. It's definitely my first big meeting. And thank you, Alonso, for,
Williams is.
sorry, I'm so old school.
Yeah, really.
Nothing, I work with a great team and I look forward to serving our community together.
Councilman Fahet.
Yeah, so I want to thank the staff because you guys do so much. Erica and Tammy and William and your whole shop. You guys do so much to support us, and Heidi as well in supporting the work with that we do. We couldn't do it without you, and it doesn't go unnoticed that when the vice chair is here and he's talking about something and you guys are like, well, we were already submitting on that. And he's like, well, you guys are on top of it. Like even he realizes and he knows this is somebody with a lot of experience and he talks to a lot of different municipalities and it's very telling that even he realizes how on top of things you guys are. So you guys are just phenomenal and we couldn't do what we do without you guys. And I just want to thank the residents that came out, and I want to thank the entire council, and I want to thank the mayor. Whenever people ask me about the mayor, I always tell them that even though we don't agree on everything, that I'm convinced that she's very thoughtful and well intentioned, and does things for the right reasons, and very hardworking for this city. And it only impresses me even more in terms of her ability as a leader that she was willing to listen and even support, what the residents were saying. So thank you to the mayor as well.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman
And I would
Vasquez.
just add to, on that note, that when you update those notes that you did, Bob, and you mentioned Alexander the Great and Patton and Napoleon, you might want to include Maria Mitchell in that.
Wow, you know what?
In
Well,
the ability.
well, if she,
I want that
as a
clip because I'm going to show it to my husband. Okay?
Yes.
as a veteran myself, I would be happy to if she had been in the armed forces. I certainly would.
No. I think that
Thank you, man.
it
Thank you,
shows
Councilman.
it shows true leadership.
No, you're right.
And I was hoping that we could find a way to move through this issue. And then when the other issue came in, I said, okay, now we're in it. So thank you, Mayor,
Well, thank you.
for your leadership. And just one last thing, William, can we have an update on the fences at the next meeting? Just because I've talked to, I was at Home Depot yesterday, just waiting for my wife, and people are walking by and they grabbed me. I said, okay, yes, I'm gonna talk about this because I know something got started in De Leon, but then the lady in Manolo says no, she hasn't seen anything. So I said, well, you know what? Let me just ask.
No,
And we
they did all the prep work, public work.
That's
The measurements, the guy is producing the fences now. So it should be, just told him it should be the next 2 or 3 weeks.
okay. No, I did mention that I got the call from the lady at De Leon at the 600 block about the pole, the light pole,
Right.
and it was back the next day because
they
it was
took-
part
yeah.
part of the prep work, and that's what I told her, that that they're doing a lot of the prep work on this because it's 5. I think it's 5.
No matter what you do, personal stuff for my house, these people are so backed up with work, it's unbelievable.
Well, I do.
Materials, fabrication.
I do love all the residents, but some of them, when you see them coming, you know what they're going to ask you about. So your brain starts going, okay, let me see.
You have an idea, right?
Anything
you.
else,
Thank
Council? Okay.
Just
Vice
have one more,
yes,
Mayor.
you
I'm
have one.
sorry. I
No,
should
no,
remember
problem.
these things.
No
I
problem.
should write them down maybe. This hurricane, keep an eye on this hurricane coming.
Yes.
I think they called it Fred. Is it the tropical storm? Yeah, it's the one coming off Africa, and they had it
Because there were 2 of
vectored
them
out
there.
coming through, and it looked almost like the one that just missed us last time, the way they got it. But keep an eye on that. That's what that was what I forgot to mention earlier to all the residents out there. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And yes, and that preparing for emergencies and stuff is really, really important. I think component of our responsibilities here as a council in the city. And to that end, I just want to remind, especially for the new council members, that the city prepares an emergency preparedness manual that is updated every May or June for the mainly, it includes hurricane season along with a whole bunch of other things. So if you don't have your hands on it, be sure to reach out to William, because right, everyone should have it. They're hard copies because in an emergency, you may not have access to your phone or anything. So we need a hard copy to be able to look at this and know, what functions the city is doing and how we can pitch in to help our staff who will be completely overwhelmed.
Yeah, my wife, we have new shutters. We've not, so my wife wants us to do a little drill tomorrow
Oh, boy.
just to make sure we know how
Jeez.
they work. I said, okay. Now that I'm home more.
Oh, right, that's right. Now
Yes.
that you did a honey-do list. I wanted to thank Commissioner Sosa, as always, her guidance. I have been working behind the scenes with her this past month in July when we didn't meet to discuss these issues that were so important to the community, the pedestrian bridge and the rapid transit zone that just kind of appeared out of nowhere. And again, William and I presented to you a draft that was the best information we had. We would have liked to have more information, but it wasn't available, and we didn't want to hold off, making this available to the community.
And it worked.
So I wanted to thank Commissioner Sosa as always, for her guidance and her support of our community. Also, I wanted to thank, of course, the Vice Chair Gilbert and Eileen Boucher, and that we had a representative from Miami-Dade Transit here to discuss the project, and Mayor Levine Cava's representative, Tomas, who was here also. So, we usually don't have that kind of representation in the past in our city meetings, and we really do have a lot of interest, support. All of them asked to attend. None of them were, they reached out to me and said, we want to be at your meeting. So to hear the concerns and to help us. And ultimately, we're part of the county. It's like, every resident in Miami Springs is part of Miami Springs. So we have our own homes, but we're part of a bigger community. And ultimately, we're also part of a bigger community of the county. So we, need to work together to always do the best we can for our community, for Miami Springs. I also wanted to, I'm sorry, I have a few things on here, but to remind the council members, if you haven't made your appointment to the Business and Economic Development Task Force, they're supposed to be meeting in September. That's their first designated date, month to meet. So please go ahead and make your appointments and advise Erica of the information so she can reach out to them in a timely manner and, give them information on the board and their responsibilities. The other thing is, well, let me do this and then I'll do the last one. Fair Havens, as you know, what used to be Fair Havens is now called Miami Springs Nursing and Rehab Center. And they reached out to me this summer. They wanted to meet with me to get to know their new administration and discuss issues that have occurred in the past. As you know, it was very embarrassing, I think, for our community, although we had no control over it, that Fair Havens wound up being, the nursing home with the highest number of COVID cases and deaths during the pandemic. And part of that is, and I know it's because of reporting, they were testing all of their residents and other areas weren't. So it's not, but it's not the reason that we want to be in the news. Anyway, William and I met with them, and we invited them to come to a council meeting in the future and make a presentation to all the council about their goals. We told them that since they've changed their name to Miami Springs Nursing Home, we will hear the complaints because people will assume that we are running.
Yes.
So I said, be prepared that we're going to hear a lot of complaints that we'll be reaching out to you to let you know. And anyway, it was a big group that we met with. They're part of a larger corporation, Ventura Services, and we met with their president and CEO also. And then the last thing, and Heidi, I wanted to ask you about this. Do you feel that we need to make a resolution? And again, like I said, I'm not really pro resolutions that, we make it and then we cancel this and all this, because I want our resolutions to mean something. But do you think we need to make a resolution regarding this rapid transit zone that we totally oppose, the county preempting us and,
So I think oftentimes we do resolutions in support or opposition to legislation, whether it be at the county level or at the state level or even federal. It might be a little too soon to do a resolution like that, simply because the ordinance isn't finalized. It hasn't even been filed. It doesn't have like a legislative file number at the county. It hasn't gone through committees or anything like that. So could we do a resolution? Yes, absolutely. We could do a resolution opposing the aspects of that ordinance that are unsavory to the city, such as the effects on increased density, the effects on the bird section, as well as the Abraham tract. But I think we can certainly discuss that if that's something that you'd be interested in doing.
and I think those are good recommendations, because again, this is a draft, and there's probably, the draft that we have probably has gone through several other drafts, so there's nothing concrete yet presented to the
And
commissioners. So
I-
down the road, we have that option of,
You might be onto something here. Maybe we should ask the counselor to prepare something for the 23rd, for the meeting on the 23rd, in in advance of it. I mean, even though there's not
in
a file
advance,
number,
and
even though there's not a file number attached, I mean, at least it's in writing. They got the word tonight. I mean, they're not gonna. There probably won't be a file number even set to it based on that.
Just keep in mind that the ordinance is being redrafted, and I do have to say that the mayor has really led on this issue. My partner, Chad Friedman, is working. Chad is the village attorney for the village of Pinecrest, and so he has been working with Mayor Corradino and the League of Cities, and he's also worked with us to bring us the latest and greatest on what's happening with this ordinance and how it would affect the city. I know that he is actively speaking with individuals at the county, with Mayor Corradino, to see how this ordinance can be less detrimental to the cities. So I think that's basically all of that to say that it's still in development. I know the representations that were made tonight. I think that a lot of really great progress was made tonight. And really, I commend the mayor on her efforts, because she really, she really did lead on this issue and became very educated on it. So the residents should be really proud tonight of the work that's been done. But all that to say, that ordinance, Commissioner Gilbert's, Vice Chair Gilbert's ordinance is still in draft. It is being reworked. And I think based on what he heard tonight, I'm sure it's going to be further reworked. So
Madam
I
Chair.
don't know if you would want to have a resolution that is generally in opposition to certain ideas, or if we would want to wait until we actually have the ordinance and then oppose it.
okay, let's,
I think the city's opposition was made abundantly clear this evening.
and I think, thank you, Heidi, for those recommendations. I think those are good recommendations. So we'll just keep it in the back of our head. Right now, it is very draft. I'm sure, that that there, even as we speak, and there's been a lot of draft revisions to it. And so we'll leave it as that, but keep it in the back of our heads that if we feel the need later on, and there's something more concrete or something being proposed to the county.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I agree. I like the way you're thinking on this. I agree with Bob. We ought to have some draft in our mind, because I looked at that map of Pinecrest, and that half a mile radius is about 2/3 of the city. Even more than the
Well,
impact.
and
it was, I can
just to
see that they're
clarify,
having these conversations.
the reason that what I showed you was Pinecrest is because that was the worksheet that we were doing through the rapid transit zone team working, and it was Mayor Corradino from Pinecrest, applied those figures to himself. And I know I told William, if he hadn't given us that worksheet and we had come up with those figures on our own, I would have said we're calculating something wrong. There's no way that these can be possible, I would have said no. It's like reread this. So having that worksheet that he provided us and then applying it to the Miami Springs, was jaw dropping, the results. So, okay, we'll just leave that in the back of our mind. And I think that is all I have. Thank you all again. We're a team up here. There's no reason that we need to agree on everything. I don't think should, but I think we ultimately all work together to find something that, is always in the best interest of our community. And I strongly feel, and I've told other people this, that I feel like everyone sitting here on this council really has the best interest of our community as forefront. So with that, thank you so much, and we're adjourned. Mainly it's, you're awesome. Thank you. No, thank you.
No, it's an inherited thing that my dad gave me. It bugs the hell out of me. It drives me crazy. I can get rid of it